A gun, rain, and a woman who controlled $50 billion sitting alone at an abandoned gas station with no idea how she got there. When mechanic Caleb Ryder found billionaire Evelyn Sinclair that night, he thought he was saving someone's life. He didn't know he was about to lose his own quiet existence forever. Because the people hunting her wouldn't stop, and the single father protecting his son would become the only thing standing between America's most ruthless CEO and total annihilation. This is their story. If you're watching, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. The call came at 11:47 on a Tuesday night while Caleb Ryder was elbow deep in transmission fluid. He almost didn't answer. The garage phone had been ringing all week with bill collectors and automated voices promising lower insurance rates. And Caleb had learned years ago that nothing good happened after 10 p.m. But something made him wipe his hands on his coveralls and grab the receiver on the fifth ring. Ryder's Auto Repair. Is this Caleb Ryder? A woman's voice, tight and professional, like she was reading from a script she'd already rehearsed twice. Depends who's asking. My name is Miranda Chen. I'm calling on behalf of Evelyn Sinclair. You serviced her vehicle approximately 6 months ago when she was passing through your area, Braz. Caleb frowned, trying to place the name. 6 months ago. May, maybe? He'd fixed a lot of cars since then. Then it clicked. The black Mercedes S-Class with the busted alternator. Woman in a tailored suit who'd handed him a credit card without asking the price and disappeared into the diner across the street while he worked. Yeah, I remember. What about it? Miss Sinclair is missing. We believe she may be somewhere in your vicinity, and we need immediate assistance locating her. Caleb set down the wrench he'd been holding. Missing? What do you mean, missing? She left a private event in Houston approximately 4 hours ago. Her security detail lost contact shortly after. Her last known direction was northbound on Highway 59 toward your town. The woman's voice cracked slightly on the last word, the professional veneer slipping. Mr. Ryder, I'm calling every business she might recognize along that route. If you see her, or if she contacts you, please. Lady, I fixed her car once. That's it. I'm not exactly on her speed dial. I understand, but if you do see her, please call this number immediately. It's extremely urgent. She rattled off digits that Caleb didn't bother writing down. He hung up and stared at the phone for a long moment. Then he went back to the transmission. The thing about small-town Texas is that nothing stays secret for long, but everything moves slow. By the time Caleb locked up the garage at 1 in the morning, he'd forgotten about the phone call entirely. His mind was on the $73 in his checking account and the electric bill that was due, Friday, and whether he could stretch another week out of the half-gallon of milk in the fridge at home. He was thinking about his son, sleeping at his mother-in-law's house 3 blocks away. 8-year-old Danny, who'd asked that morning why they couldn't go to the movies like Tyler's family did last weekend. Caleb had explained patiently that movies cost money they didn't have right now. Danny had nodded, the way he always did, understanding too much for a kid his age. The rain started as Caleb climbed into his pickup truck. Not the gentle Texas drizzle that lasted 15 minutes and dried by morning, but the hard, angry kind that turned dirt roads into mud and highways into mirrors. He flipped on the wipers and pulled out of the lot. Highway 59 was empty. Not unusual for 1 a.m. on a Wednesday, but tonight it felt different. The rain hammered the windshield in sheets, and Caleb's headlights barely cut through the wall of water. He was 5 miles from home when he saw the gas station, or what used to be a gas station. The place had been abandoned for years, pumps torn out, windows boarded, the old Texaco sign hanging at a broken angle. Caleb had driven past it 1,000 times without looking twice. But tonight, there was a shape huddled against the far wall, barely visible in the darkness. He slowed down. Probably nothing. A trash bag. A dog. Then the shape moved. Caleb pulled off the highway, his truck's tires crunching on gravel and broken glass. His headlights swept across the building, and that's when he saw her clearly. A woman, soaking wet, sitting with her back against the wall, knees pulled to her chest, dark hair plastered to her face, and in her right hand, held awkwardly like she'd never touched one before, a small black handgun. Jesus Christ, Caleb muttered. He killed the engine but left the headlights on. The woman didn't move, didn't even look up as Caleb opened his door and stepped out into the rain. Hey, he called out. You okay? Nothing. He moved closer, hands visible, the way you'd approach a wounded animal. The rain was deafening, drumming on the metal roof overhang and splashing in puddles around his boots. 10 feet away, he stopped. Ma'am, I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to make sure you're all right. She lifted her head slowly. Her face was pale, makeup running in dark streaks down her cheeks. And her eyes. Caleb had seen that look before. On soldiers back from deployment, on parents who'd lost kids, on his own face in the mirror after Sarah's funeral. Complete devastation. He was sleeping with her, sir, the woman said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. My sister. They were sleeping together for 14 months while I was working, while I was building everything. Caleb's stomach went cold. The gun was still in her hand. Okay, he said carefully. That's really hard. I'm sorry that happened. And they took it, all of it, filed papers this morning. I didn't even know until tonight. She laughed, a harsh, broken sound. I built that company from nothing, 16-hour days for 8 years, and they took it. What's your name? She looked at him then, really looked, and recognition flickered across her face. You're the mechanic. And that's when Caleb recognized her too. Not from 6 months ago. From the news, from magazine covers in the grocery store checkout line, from the interview on 60 Minutes that Danny had insisted they watch, because she's the richest lady in America, Evelyn Sinclair, CEO of Sinclair Enterprises, worth something like $50 billion, according to Forbes. Sitting in the rain at an abandoned gas station, holding a gun, looking like she wanted to disappear. Ms. Sinclair, Caleb said slowly, I need you to put the gun down. Why? She turned it over in her hands, studying it like a puzzle she couldn't solve. What's the point? They won. Marcus and Lily won. The board will vote him in by Friday. I have nothing left. That's not true. You don't know anything about me. You're right, I don't. But I know you paid $900 to fix an alternator without blinking. And you tipped my apprentice $50 just for washing your windshield. And you called him sir when he handed you back the keys. Caleb took a step closer. Someone who does that isn't nothing. Evelyn stared at him. Then, slowly, she set the gun down on the concrete beside her. Caleb exhaled. He hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. Your assistant called me tonight, he said, crouching down but keeping his distance. She's worried about you. Miranda, of course she is. Evelyn closed her eyes. She probably thinks I'm going to do something stupid. Are you? I don't know. Maybe. She opened her eyes again, and they were wet, not from the rain. I found them in my guest house, my fiancé and my baby sister. They didn't even stop when I walked in, just looked at me, like I was interrupting. Caleb didn't know what to say to that. Sorry seemed pathetic. So he just stayed there, rain soaking through his coveralls, waiting. Then Marcus told me, Evelyn continued, about the papers, the board meeting. He'd been planning it for over a year, convincing investors I was unstable, planning stories, creating doubt. She laughed again, that awful broken sound. And Lily helped him, my own sister, because I gave her a position at the company she wasn't qualified for, and apparently she's been embezzling for months. They're blaming it all on me. That's fraud. You can fight that. With what? He froze my accounts this afternoon. My lawyers are his lawyers now. He has security footage of me screaming at him tonight, breaking things. It'll be on the news by morning. Unstable CEO has breakdown, attacks fiancé. Evelyn pulled her knees tighter to her chest. I ran. I just got in my car and drove. Didn't even know where I was going until I ended up here. Caleb looked back at his truck, then at the woman in front of him. Every instinct screamed that this was not his problem, that he should call the assistant, wait for someone official to show up, go home to his quiet life and forget any of this happened. But that look in her eyes. Where's your car? He asked. I don't know. I pulled over somewhere, started walking, left my phone in it. Okay. Caleb stood up, rain streaming down his face. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get in my truck. I'm going to take you somewhere safe. And then we're going to figure out what to do next. Why? Evelyn asked. Why would you help me? Because someone did the same for me once, Caleb said. When my wife died and I was about to lose everything. A stranger gave me work when nobody else would. So now I'm returning the favor. He held out his hand. Evelyn looked at it for a long moment. Then she reached up and took it. What? They drove in silence for the first 10 minutes. Caleb had grabbed the gun, carefully, using his shirt, and locked it in the truck's toolbox. Evelyn sat in the passenger seat, shivering despite the heater cranked to full blast, staring out at the rain. Where are we going? She finally asked. Motel about 20 miles from here, place called the Starlight Inn. Owner's a friend, she won't ask questions. They'll find me. Marcus has people, private security. They're probably looking already. Maybe, but they'll look in nice places first. Hotels downtown, your friends' houses. They won't think to check a $50 a night motel in the middle of nowhere. Evelyn was quiet for another moment. Then, you really don't know who I am, do you? I know you're rich. I know you run some kind of company. Beyond that? Caleb shrugged. Not really my world. Oh, Sinclair Enterprises. We buy failing companies, restructure them, sell them for profit. I've closed 11 deals in the last 3 years worth over $30 billion. She said it mechanically, like reciting a resume. I'm the youngest self-made female billionaire in American history. I've been on the cover of Time magazine 4 times. Last year I was invited to speak at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Sounds exhausting. That surprised a laugh out of her. Small, but real. It was. It is. I haven't taken a vacation in 6 years. I don't remember the last time I slept more than 4 hours a night. She looked down at her hands. And none of it mattered, because the 2 people I trusted most in the world were destroying me the entire time. Caleb didn't have an answer for that. So instead he asked, You hungry? What? It's 1:30 in the morning. You're soaking wet, and I'm guessing you haven't eaten since... When? Lunch? I don't... Evelyn stopped. Actually, I don't remember. I don't... Evelyn stopped. There's a diner near the motel. Ruthie's. Opens at midnight, closes at 6 a.m. Serves the best terrible coffee you'll ever drink. He glanced at her. We should get some food in you before you collapse. I don't have any money. Marcus froze everything. I've got $12 in my wallet and a credit card with about $50 left before I hit the limit. We'll make it work. Check. Ruthie's diner was exactly what it sounded like. A narrow aluminum box with a flickering neon sign and vinyl booths that had been patched with duct tape more times than Caleb could count. At this hour, it was empty except for a trucker in the corner nursing black coffee and Ruthie herself behind the counter reading a paperback Western. She looked up when they walked in, took in Evelyn's soaked designer dress and ruined heels, Caleb's oil-stained coveralls, raised one eyebrow. 2 for breakfast? She asked, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Yeah, thanks, Ruthie. They slid into a booth near the back. Ruthie brought over 2 mugs of coffee without asking, then disappeared again. Evelyn wrapped her hands around the mug, holding it like a lifeline. This is insane. I shouldn't be here. I should be calling my lawyers, my board members, someone who can actually help. With what phone? She stopped. Your assistant said you left yours in the car, Caleb continued. And even if you had it, you think your fiancé doesn't have access to everything. Your call logs, your location, your contacts. He took a sip of coffee. Ruthie was right about one thing. It was terrible. Right now, the smartest thing you can do is nothing. Let them think you fell apart. Let them relax. And then what? Then we figure out how to fight back, and we? Evelyn stared at him. You're a mechanic. No offense, but you have no idea what you're up against. Marcus has, let me guess, lawyers, money, connections, people who'll lie for him, people who'll hurt anyone he tells them to. Caleb met her eyes. I was in the Marines for 6 years, did 2 tours in Afghanistan. I've been up against worse. This isn't a war. Isn't it? Ruthie returned with plates, eggs, bacon, toast, hash browns. The standard middle-of-the-night meal. She set them down and vanished again without a word. Evelyn picked up a fork, then set it down. I don't even know your name, your full name. Caleb Ryder, 32, single dad. Own a garage that barely breaks even most months. He started on his eggs. Exciting stuff. You said your wife died. 4 years ago. Car accident. She was coming home from her mom's house, hit black ice on the highway. Caleb kept his voice even, the way he always did when talking about Sarah. Danny was 4. He doesn't remember her much anymore. Sometimes that's worse than if he did. Danny's your son? Yeah. How do you do it? Raise him alone? Caleb shrugged. You just do. He needs to eat. You feed him. He needs help with homework. You help. He needs someone to show up at school plays and parent-teacher conferences and baseball games. You show up. He looked up at her. You don't think about whether you can handle it. You just handle it. Evelyn finally took a bite of eggs. Then another. Then she was eating steadily, like she'd just realized she was starving. I was going to marry him, she said quietly. Marcus. Next spring. I had the venue picked out, the dress ordered. My sister was supposed to be my maid of honor. She laughed, sharp and bitter. Shows what I know about people. You know what I think? Caleb said. I think the problem wasn't you not knowing people. It's you spending so much time with the wrong kind of people, you forgot what the good ones look like. And you're a good one? I'm a broke one. Which means I don't have any reason to lie to you or want something from you. He finished his coffee. But yeah, I try to be. They ate in silence for a while. Outside, the rain had softened to a steady drizzle. The trucker paid his bill and left. Ruthie flipped a page in her book. Why are you really doing this? Evelyn asked eventually. And don't say because someone helped you once. There's more to it. Caleb set down his fork. Thought about lying. Decided against it. Because my son asks me sometimes what it means to be a good man, he said. And I want to show him, not just tell him. So when someone needs help and I can give it, I do. Even if it's complicated. Even if it's scary. Because that's what good men do. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, the walls coming down, just a little. I built my entire company on the idea that weakness is failure, she said. That asking for help means you're not strong enough. That if you can't do it alone, you shouldn't do it at all. She pushed her empty plate away and look where that got me. Maybe it's time to try something different. Like what? Like trusting someone. Ruthie brought the check. Caleb pulled out his wallet. $12.37 in cash. He left it all on the table and put the rest on his credit card. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The sky was still dark, but in the east there was the faintest hint of gray. Dawn coming. The motel's just up the road, Caleb said. We'll get you checked in. You can sleep for a few hours, and then we'll figure out the next step. Evelyn nodded, but as they walked to the truck, she stopped suddenly. Caleb, he turned. Thank you, she said. I'm not good at this, at accepting help, but thank you. You're welcome. They drove the last 2 miles to the Starlight Inn in comfortable silence. The place was exactly as rundown as Caleb remembered. A single-story strip of rooms with peeling paint and a neon vacancy sign that buzzed like an angry wasp. But it was clean, and more importantly, it was invisible. The night clerk was a kid Caleb vaguely recognized from the high school. He glanced up from his phone, looked at Evelyn's dress, looked at Caleb's coveralls, clearly formed about 6 different wrong conclusions, and decided he didn't care. 1 room? 2, Caleb said. Adjoining, if you've got them. We got 'em. The kid slid 2 keys across the counter. $48 a night, each. Caleb handed over his credit card and prayed it wouldn't decline. It went through, barely. The rooms were exactly what you'd expect. Thin carpet, thinner walls, a TV from 2003, and a bathroom the size of a closet. But the beds looked clean, and there was a lock on the door. I'll be right next door, Caleb said. You need anything? Just knock. Evelyn stood in the doorway of her room, looking small and lost in a way that had nothing to do with her height. What time is it? Almost 3. I should sleep. I know I should sleep. But I keep thinking, what if Marcus finds me? What if he sends people? What if He won't find you tonight, Caleb said firmly. And if somehow he does, he'll have to go through me first. You don't even know me. I know enough. Evelyn nodded slowly. Then she stepped into the room and closed the door. Caleb went to his own room and collapsed on the bed fully clothed. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother-in-law. Danny's asleep. Take your time tomorrow morning. We're making pancakes. He typed back. Thanks, Diane. Tell him I love him. Then he set an alarm for 7 a.m., closed his eyes, and tried not to think about the fact that he'd just inserted himself into the middle of something way beyond his pay grade. But even as exhaustion pulled him under, he couldn't shake the image of Evelyn sitting in the rain, holding that gun, looking like the loneliest person in the world. Nobody should have to feel that alone. Caleb woke to pounding on the door. For a confused second, he thought it was the alarm. Then his brain caught up and he rolled off the bed, heart hammering. The clock on the nightstand read 5:47 a.m. More pounding. Caleb! Evelyn's voice, tight with panic. Caleb, open up! He fumbled with the lock and pulled the door open. Evelyn stood there in the same wet dress from last night. Hair wild, eyes wide. What? Someone's here, she gasped. Black SUV just pulled into the parking lot. 3 men got out. They're knocking on doors. Caleb's training kicked in instantly. He grabbed Evelyn's arm, pulled her into his room, locked the door, moved to the window and carefully pulled back the curtain just enough to see. She was right. Black Suburban, tinted windows, still running. 3 men in dark suits moving methodically down the row of rooms. One of them was holding up a phone, probably showing her picture. How did they find me this fast? Evelyn whispered. Your car, Caleb said. You said you left it somewhere. They must have tracked it, started searching the area. He let the curtain fall. We need to move. Now. Where? We're trapped. Caleb thought fast. The rooms backed up to an open field. No fence. If they could get out the bathroom window. Listen to me, he said. I'm going to open the bathroom window. You're going to climb out, stay low, head for the tree line about 50 yards behind the building. There's a creek back there. Follow it south for about half a mile until you hit a dirt road. Wait for me there. What about you? I'm going to delay them. Give you a head start. But, Caleb, they're not going to just talk to you. If Marcus sent them, then I'll handle it. He was already moving, pushing open the bathroom window, checking that it was wide enough. It was. Barely. Go. Now. Evelyn hesitated. Then she kicked off her heels, hiked up her dress, and climbed through the window with more agility than Caleb expected. He watched her disappear into the pre-dawn gray. Then he walked to the front door and opened it just as one of the men was raising his fist to knock. Morning, Caleb said. Little early for visitors. The man was professional, crisp suit, blank expression, hands visible. But Caleb had been around enough hired muscle to spot the bulge of a shoulder holster under the jacket. We're looking for someone. The man held up a phone showing a professional headshot of Evelyn. Have you seen this woman? Nope. You checked in late last night with a woman. That was my girlfriend. She's asleep. You want to wake her up and apologize for the accusation, or you want to move along? The man's eyes narrowed slightly. He glanced at his companion's eyes, then back at Caleb. Mind if we verify that? Actually, yeah, I do mind. Pretty sure you need a warrant or something. We're not police. Then you definitely need to move along. The man studied Caleb for a long moment, calculating. Caleb kept his expression bored, his posture relaxed, just a tired mechanic annoyed at being woken up early. Finally, the man nodded. Have a good day, sir. They moved on to the next room. Caleb waited until they were out of sight, then grabbed his truck keys, locked the room, and walked calmly to the parking lot. His pickup was parked 3 spots down from the Suburban. He climbed in, started the engine, and pulled out onto the road like he had somewhere important to be. One of the men watched him leave. Caleb saw him in the rearview mirror talking into a phone. Damn it, Caleb muttered. He drove exactly the speed limit until he was out of sight, then floored it. The dirt road was where he remembered, a narrow path through overgrown grass that led to some abandoned farmland. He found Evelyn crouched in the tall grass, barefoot and covered in mud, shaking. Get in, he said. She scrambled into the passenger seat. Caleb hit the gas. Where are we going? Evelyn asked. somewhere they won't think to look. He turned onto a paved road, heading west. Did anyone see you leave? I don't think so. Good. He checked his mirrors. No one following, yet. You said Marcus froze your accounts. Can he track your credit cards? He already has access to all of them. What about cash? You have any? No, nothing. Caleb did the math in his head. $50 left on his credit card. Maybe $100 in his checking account if he overdrafted. That wasn't going to get them far. We need to disappear completely, he said. That means no paper trail, no ATMs, no credit cards, nothing digital. Us. For how long? Until we figure out how to prove Marcus is lying, or until he stops looking. Caleb glanced at her. Which one's more likely? Evelyn was quiet. He won't stop, not until I'm either dead or completely destroyed. Great. Caleb focused on the road. Then we've got work to do. The sun was rising behind them, turning the sky from gray to pink to gold. Somewhere in Houston, Marcus was probably waking up, checking his phone, getting updates from his security team. Somewhere in that same city, lawyers were preparing documents, board members were reading carefully crafted statements, and the story of the unstable CEO was being spread like gospel. But here, on a back road in rural Texas, a broke mechanic and a billionaire who'd lost everything were about to become fugitives together. And neither of them had any idea what came next. They drove until the gas gauge hit a quarter tank, and Caleb's nerves finally settled enough to think clearly. The sun was fully up now, hard and bright, and the Texas landscape rolled past in endless stretches of brown grass and scrub brush. Evelyn had stopped shaking somewhere around mile 40, but she hadn't spoken since they left the motel. We need to make a stop, Caleb said finally. I have to pick up my son. Evelyn turned to look at him. Her face was still streaked with mud, her expensive dress torn at the hem. You can't involve your child in this. I'm not planning to, but I can't just disappear without telling him, and I sure as hell can't leave him wondering where I went. Caleb kept his eyes on the road. His grandmother will call the police if I don't show up by noon. That's a whole different problem we don't need. So what's the plan? You walk in, grab him, and leave? With me covered in mud sitting in your truck? Pretty much, yeah. That's insane. You got a better idea? Caleb glanced at her. Look, I know this isn't what you signed up for. I can drop you at a bus station if you want. Give you what cash I have left. You can figure it out from there. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Those men at the motel, they weren't just hired security. One of them had a gun with a suppressor. I saw it when his jacket shifted. Caleb's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You sure? I've been around security my entire adult life. I know what I saw. She looked out the window. Marcus isn't trying to find me so he can negotiate. He's trying to find me so I disappear permanently. All the more reason to get somewhere safe and figure this out. There is nowhere safe. Don't you understand that? He has resources you can't imagine. Private investigators, hackers, people who can track your phone just from the tower pings. Evelyn turned back to him. The second you use your credit card again, or your phone, or talk to anyone who might mention seeing us, we're done. Then we don't use any of that stuff. For how long? A day? A week? What about your son? What about your business? Caleb didn't have an answer for that, because she was right. Every mile they drove, every minute that passed, he was digging himself deeper into something he couldn't climb out of alone. But he kept driving anyway. His mother-in-law's house was a small ranch-style place on the edge of town, with a chain-link fence and a garden Diane had been tending for 30 years. Caleb pulled up to the curb 3 houses down and killed the engine. Stay here, he said. I'll be 10 minutes. Caleb? Evelyn grabbed his arm. If this goes wrong, if someone sees me, or if those men figure out who you are and come here, it won't. But if it does, then you run. Take the truck, drive as far as you can, and don't look back. He met her eyes. Deal? She nodded slowly. Caleb got out and walked toward the house, trying to look casual, normal, just a dad picking up his kid after an early shift. But his heart was hammering, and he couldn't stop checking over his shoulder. Diane was in the kitchen when he knocked. She opened the door with a smile that faded the second she saw his face. What happened? Long story. Is Danny ready? Mhm. He's watching cartoons. Caleb, what's going on? You look like you haven't slept. I haven't. It's work stuff. Emergency at the shop. The lie tasted bitter. Diane had been nothing but good to him since Sarah died, and he hated lying to her. But the truth was worse. I need to take Danny for a couple days. Is that okay? Diane's eyes narrowed. A couple days? Where? Just out of town. I need to handle something. Handle what? Diane, please. I promise I'll explain everything later. But right now I need you to trust me. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she called over her shoulder. Danny, your dad's here. The sound of small feet running. Then Danny appeared, still in his pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction. Dad, you're here early. Can we get McDonald's for breakfast? Sure, buddy. Go get your shoes on, okay? And grab your backpack. Are we going somewhere? Yeah, a little trip. Just you and me. Danny's face lit up. Like camping? Something like that. While Danny ran off to get ready, Diane stepped closer. Caleb, whatever you're mixed up in, I'm not mixed up in anything. I'm helping someone who needs it. The woman in your truck? Caleb's stomach dropped. You saw her? Passed by on my way to check the mail. Hard to miss someone covered in mud sitting in your passenger seat. Diane crossed her arms. Who is she? A friend. She's in trouble. Bad trouble. And I'm trying to keep her safe. By dragging Danny into it? I'm not dragging him anywhere. I'm taking him with me because leaving him here is worse. If anyone comes looking for her, they'll look here. At my shop. At anyone connected to me. Caleb lowered his voice. I need him where I can see him, where I know he's safe. Diane's expression softened slightly. How bad is this trouble? Some. Bad enough that men with guns showed up at a motel at 6 a.m. Jesus Christ, Caleb. I know it's a mess, but I didn't have a choice. Danny came running back. Shoes half tied, backpack slung over one shoulder. Ready! Diane looked at Danny, then at Caleb. You keep him safe. You hear me? Whatever else happens, you keep that boy safe. I will. And you call me. Every day. I don't care what kind of trouble you're in. I need to know you're both okay. I'll try. Don't try. Do it. Caleb nodded. He hugged Diane quickly, then took Danny's hand and walked back to the truck. Danny climbed in first, his eyes going wide when he saw Evelyn. Whoa, why are you all muddy? I fell, Evelyn said. Her voice was stiff, uncertain, like she didn't know how to talk to kids. Did it hurt? A little. Dad, can we stop at McDonald's? Grandma made oatmeal, but it had raisins in it, and I don't like raisins. Yeah, buddy, we'll stop. Caleb started the truck and pulled away from the curb, watching Diane in the rearview mirror until she disappeared. They hit the drive-thru on the edge of town. Caleb ordered with cash, 3 Egg McMuffins, hash browns, orange juice for Danny, and coffee for himself. Evelyn didn't ask for anything, but he got her a coffee anyway. Danny ate in the back seat, chattering about the cartoon he'd been watching and how Tyler's mom was letting Tyler stay home from school because he had a dentist appointment, which wasn't fair because Danny wanted to stay home too. Caleb let him talk, only half listening. His mind was racing through options, discarding them as fast as they appeared. They couldn't go back to his place. Couldn't use hotels. Those required credit cards or ID. Couldn't risk anywhere Marcus's people might track them. Dad? Danny's voice cut through his thoughts. Where are we going? That's a good question, buddy. Is it a secret? Kind of. Are we running away? Caleb glanced in the rearview mirror. Danny was looking at him with those 2 smart eyes, the ones that saw more than Caleb wanted him to. Not running away, Caleb said carefully. Just taking a break. You, me, and Miss... He realized he'd never actually introduced them. This is Miss Sinclair. She's a friend of mine. Evelyn, she said quietly. You can call me Evelyn. That's a pretty name, Danny said. Like the movie, the one with the princess. I'm not a princess. Yeah, but you're fancy. I can tell. You talk like the people on TV. Evelyn looked at Caleb, something almost like amusement in her eyes. He's observant. Too observant sometimes. They drove west, away from the main highways, sticking to county roads that barely showed up on maps. The truck's gas tank was hovering just above empty when Caleb spotted what he'd been looking for. A small farm supply store with a handwritten sign advertising camping gear. Stay here, he told Evelyn. Danny, you too. Inside, he bought 2 sleeping bags, a tent, a camping stove, and as much non-perishable food as $40 could get him. The clerk was an old man who didn't ask questions, just rang up the purchase and told Caleb to have a nice day. Back in the truck, Danny was bouncing in his seat. We're really going camping? For real? For real. Yes. Danny pumped his fist. Can we make s'mores? We'll see. Miss Evelyn, have you ever been camping? Evelyn looked at the tent and sleeping bags like they were alien artifacts. No, never. It's really fun. You cook food on a fire and sleep outside, and sometimes you see deer. One time Dad and I saw a whole family of deer and the baby one came really close. That sounds nice, Evelyn said. She didn't sound convinced. Caleb found the spot around 2 in the afternoon, an old logging road that led deep into state forest land, far enough from civilization that they'd hear anyone coming long before they arrived. The trees were thick here, pine and oak, and the ground was covered in needles that muffled their footsteps. This'll work, Caleb said. For what? Evelyn asked. Hiding forever? For a few days, while we figure out what to do next. Setting up camp took an hour. Caleb let Danny help with the tent while Evelyn sat on a fallen log, watching like she'd been dropped onto another planet. She'd tried to help at first, but it was obvious she'd never done anything remotely like this before, so Caleb gave her the job of organizing the food supplies. When everything was set up, Danny went exploring the immediate area, collecting pine cones and rocks he deemed cool enough to keep. That left Caleb and Evelyn alone for the first time since the motel. This is insane, Evelyn said. We're camping, in the woods, while people with guns are looking for me. You got a better plan? I had a plan. It was called Build an Empire and Control Everything so Nothing Could Touch Me. She laughed, bitter. Worked great until the people closest to me decided to burn it down. Caleb sat down next to her on the log. So now you build something different. Like what? A tent in the forest? Like a case. Evidence. Proof that your fiancé is lying. He looked at her. You said he's been planning this for a year. That means there's a paper trail. Emails, messages, financial records. Something that proves what he did. Marcus is too smart for that. Nobody's that smart. People make mistakes when they think they've already won. Caleb pulled out his phone. The battery was at 30%, and he'd turned off all the location services. Who can you trust? Anyone at your company? Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Miranda, my assistant. She's been with me for 5 years. If anyone's still loyal, it's her. Can you contact her without Marcus knowing? Not easily. He'll be monitoring everything. My office line, her work email, probably her personal phone too. What about social media? Something indirect? What? Miranda doesn't use social media. She thinks it's a waste of time. Evelyn rubbed her temples. There might be a way. She has a cousin who runs a bakery in the Heights. They're close. If I could get a message to the cousin, what's the bakery called? Sweet Escape, on 19th Street. Caleb made a note in his phone. Okay, tomorrow I'll drive into the nearest town, find a payphone, call the bakery, leave a message saying, what? What would Miranda understand that Marcus wouldn't? Whoa, Evelyn thought. Tell them I'm looking for the file on the Dallas acquisition. Miranda will know what that means. It was a deal I killed last year because the numbers didn't add up. I kept all the documentation showing why. If she can get that file to me, that proves what? It proves I'm thorough, careful, not someone who'd commit fraud or make reckless decisions. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Marcus is building a narrative that I'm unstable, erratic, that I've been making bad choices for months. But if Miranda can pull my records, my decisions, the reasoning behind everything, it contradicts his story. That's a start. It's barely a start. It's not enough to get my company back. It's not even enough to clear my name. Evelyn stood up, pacing. And while we're sitting here in the woods, Marcus is consolidating power. The board meeting is Friday, 3 days from now. If I'm not there to fight it, then you go. With what? No money? No lawyers? No security? I walk into that building and I'll be arrested before I reach the elevator. Keats. Caleb didn't have an answer for that. Because she was right. Walking into a fight you couldn't win was just suicide with extra steps. Danny came running back, arms full of pine cones. Look! I found 18 of them. Can we make a fort? Sure, buddy. While Danny built his pine cone fort, Caleb started a small fire. The temperature was dropping as the sun moved lower, and they'd need warmth once darkness fell. Evelyn sat near the flames, still looking lost, and Caleb wondered what it must be like to go from controlling billions of dollars to sitting in the dirt with nothing. They ate canned soup heated over the fire, Danny chattering the whole time about school and his friend Tyler and how he wanted a dog, but Dad said they couldn't afford it right now. Evelyn listened, barely touching her food, and Caleb could see the wheels turning in her head. Planning, calculating. When Danny finally crashed around 8, exhausted from the fresh air and adventure, Caleb tucked him into one of the sleeping bags in the tent. His son was asleep before Caleb finished zipping the bag closed. Outside, Evelyn was still by the fire, staring into the flames. "He's a good kid," she said when Caleb sat down next to her. "He's the best thing I ever did." "You're lucky." "I know." They sat in silence for a while. The woods were loud with night sounds, crickets, distant owls, wind through the trees. Caleb had always found it peaceful, but Evelyn looked tense, like she expected something to jump out of the darkness at any moment. "I can't do this," she said finally. "Hide in the woods and hope it all works out. That's not who I am." "Then who are you?" "I'm someone who fights, someone who doesn't back down, someone who—" She stopped. "Someone who apparently missed every sign that the two people I loved most were destroying me." "They fooled you. That doesn't mean you were weak. It means they were good liars." I should have seen it. The late nights Marcus claimed were client meetings. The way Lily kept asking about company finances she had no business knowing. The way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. Evelyn's voice cracked. "I saw it. I just didn't want to believe it." Caleb poked at the fire with a stick. "My wife used to say that trusting people was a risk you took because the alternative was worse. Being alone, never letting anyone close, that's not living. That's just existing." "She sounds smart." She was. Smarter than me. He smiled slightly. She'd know what to do right now. Sarah always knew what to do. "And you don't?" "I'm making it up as I go." Caleb looked at Evelyn. "But I know we can't stay here forever. Tomorrow I'll call the bakery, try to get word to Miranda. Then we figure out what evidence you need and how to get it. And if we can't, then we try something else. And if that doesn't work, we try again." He shrugged. "I don't know how to do most things, but I'm real good at not giving up." Evelyn stared at him. "Why? Why are you doing all this? You have a son to think about, a business, a life. You could walk away right now and nobody would blame you." "I'd blame me." "That's not an answer." Caleb thought about how to explain it. The feeling that had been building in his chest since he found her at that gas station. Not obligation, not pity, but something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Of someone who'd been knocked down and didn't know how to get back up. Of someone who needed help even if they'd never admit it. "You asked me earlier why I'm really doing this," he said. "Here's the truth. When Sarah died, I was a mess. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think straight. And everyone, her family, my friends, people at church, they all said the same thing. You have to be strong for Danny. You have to hold it together." He paused. "But I wasn't strong. I was falling apart. And the only reason I didn't completely lose it was because one night, about 3 months after the funeral, I broke down in my garage and my neighbor found me, just sat there with me. Didn't say anything, didn't try to fix it, just stayed. That's different. Is it? You were sitting alone with a gun at an abandoned gas station. You think I could just drive past that?" Evelyn looked away. "I wasn't actually going to use it. I don't think. I just, I needed to feel like I had some control, even if it was just control over how it ended. But you didn't end it. No. And now you're here, which means some part of you still wants to fight. I don't know what I want anymore. Evelyn wrapped her arms around herself. Everything I built, everything I worked for, it's gone. Even if I prove Marcus is lying, even if I get the company back, it's poison now. I'll always wonder who else is secretly working against me. Who else is just waiting for me to fail? Then don't go back to that world. Baran in motor Marcus. She laughed. What else am I supposed to do? This is all I know. I've been working 90-hour weeks since I was 22. I don't have hobbies. I don't have friends outside the industry. I don't even know what normal people do with their time. They sit around fires, Caleb said. They tell stories. They teach their kids how to fish and make terrible jokes at dinner. He looked at Danny's tent. They live small, quiet lives that don't make headlines. And they're happy. You're happy? Most days, yeah. Not in the way I expected, not in the way I planned. But Danny's healthy, we have a roof over our heads, and I get to do work I'm good at. He paused. Could I use more money? Sure. Would it be nice not to worry about bills? Absolutely. But I wouldn't trade what I have now for anything. Evelyn was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I can't remember the last time I was happy. Actually happy, not just satisfied with a deal closing or a profit margin increasing. That's sad. It is, isn't it? She smiled, but there was no humor in it. I turned 30 last year, threw myself a party at a 5-star hotel. 200 guests, full orchestra, champagne that cost $800 a bottle. And the whole time I kept thinking, I don't actually know any of these people. They were colleagues, business partners, investors, not friends, not anyone who actually cared about me. What about your sister? The smile disappeared. I thought Lily cared, I really did. We weren't close growing up. She's 6 years younger and I was always working. But when our parents died, I made sure she was taken care of. Paid for her college, got her a job at the company, bought her a condo downtown. Evelyn's voice went hard. And she thanked me by sleeping with my fiancé and helping him steal everything. You're going to see her again eventually, when this is over. What are you going to say? I don't know. Part of me wants to scream at her, ask her how she could do this, if any of it was ever real. Evelyn stared into the fire. But another part of me just wants to understand. Why wasn't I enough? Why did she hate me that much? Caleb didn't have an answer. Some betrayals didn't make sense, no matter how hard you tried to understand them. They just existed, sharp and painful, and all you could do was learn to live around the wound. They sat there until the fire burned down to embers. Then Caleb added more wood, enough to keep them warm through the night, and suggested they get some sleep. I'll take first watch, he said. Watch for what? Anyone who might have followed us. Animals, whatever. He pulled out his phone, battery at 12% now. You should rest. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. Evelyn nodded but didn't move toward the tent. Caleb, thank you. For Danny. For trusting me around him. I know I'm a stranger and I know it's not safe. You're not going to hurt him. How do you know? Because I've seen the way you look at him. Like he's something precious you don't know how to hold. Caleb smiled slightly. That's how I looked at him for the first 2 years, scared I'd break him. But kids are tougher than they seem. He looks like you. Poor kid. That got a real smile out of her. Small, but real. You're not bad looking, in a rugged mechanic covered in grease kind of way. Wow, thanks. I mean it as a compliment. I'll take it. Evelyn finally stood and walked toward the tent. At the entrance, she paused. If something happens, if they find us, you take Danny and run. Don't wait for me. Don't try to fight. Just go. Nothing's going to happen. But if it does, I'll keep him safe, I promise. She nodded and disappeared inside. Caleb sat by the fire for another hour, listening to the woods and trying not to think about how quickly his life had been turned upside down. 2 days ago, his biggest worry was making rent. Now he was hiding in the forest with a billionaire while armed men searched for them. His phone buzzed, battery at 5%. He'd need to charge it tomorrow, which meant finding somewhere with power. Another risk, another exposure point. He thought about Diane, probably sitting at home worrying, about the shop, closed now with a handwritten sign that said, "Family emergency, back soon," taped to the door. About all the ways this could go wrong. But mostly he thought about Evelyn, asleep in that tent, and the look in her eyes when she'd told him about finding her sister and fiancé together. That kind of betrayal didn't heal quickly. Maybe didn't heal at all. The fire crackled. An owl called somewhere in the darkness. And Caleb Ryder, 32-year-old mechanic and single father, sat guard over two people he'd sworn to protect, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, or the most important decision. He was still trying to figure out which when exhaustion finally pulled him under around 3 a.m. He jerked awake an hour later, heart pounding, certain he'd heard something, but the woods were silent. No engines, no footsteps, no voices, just his imagination working overtime. He added more wood to the fire and settled in to wait for dawn. Morning came cold and gray. Caleb woke Danny at 7, gave him a granola bar and some water, and explained they were going to play a game. The game was called Let's Be Very Quiet and Very Careful because we're on a secret adventure. Danny, bless him, accepted this without question. Evelyn emerged from the tent looking worse than she had the night before. Hair tangled, face pale, expensive dress now completely ruined. But there was something different in her eyes, something harder. "I need to get to Miranda," she said. "The bakery, today." "That's too risky. If Marcus has people watching, then we'll be careful. But I can't sit here and do nothing while he takes everything I built." Evelyn's jaw was set. "I need that file. And I need to know who else at the company is still loyal." Caleb wanted to argue, but he understood the feeling, the need to act, to fight back, to do something instead of just hiding. "Okay," he said, "but we do it smart. We find a place to keep Danny safe first. Then..." "Dad?" Danny was standing at the edge of their campsite, pointing. "There's a car coming." Caleb's blood went cold. "Where?" "On the road. The one we came in on. I hear it." They all froze, listening. And there it was, the distant sound of an engine getting closer. "Pack up," Caleb said quietly. "Now, leave the tent. Just grab the important stuff." They moved fast. Sleeping bags shoved into the truck bed, food supplies thrown in after. Danny climbed into the back seat without being told. Evelyn grabbed her shoes, the only thing she'd brought from the motel, and got in the passenger side. Caleb started the engine and took the truck deeper into the forest, following a narrow deer trail he'd noticed yesterday. The branches scraped against the sides, and twice the wheels spun in soft earth, but they kept moving. Behind them, the sound of the other vehicle grew louder, then stopped. Caleb killed the engine. "Stay down!" They waited. Danny pressed against the back of the seat, barely breathing. Evelyn had her hand on the door handle, ready to run. Voices. 2 men, maybe 3, talking in low tones. "Tire tracks here. Recent. Could be hunters. Or could be them. Radio it in." Footsteps, coming closer. Caleb's hand moved to the keys, ready to start the truck and floor it if they had no choice. But that would give away their position instantly. Their only advantage was distance and concealment. The footsteps stopped maybe 20 feet away. "Nothing here, just trees. Check the area. They might have abandoned the vehicle." More movement. The sound of someone pushing through brush. Then, from somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Once. Twice. "Dispatch, this is Unit 3. Got a possible sighting 2 miles northeast. Moving to investigate." The footsteps retreated. Engine started. Vehicles pulling away. Caleb waited a full 5 minutes before he let himself breathe again. "That was close," Evelyn whispered. "Too close." Caleb started the truck, keeping the engine quiet. They're coordinating. Multiple teams, which means Marcus isn't playing around. "I told you." "Yeah, you did." He put the truck in reverse, carefully backing out the way they'd come. "We need a new plan. This one's not working." "I have an idea," Evelyn said. "But you're not going to like it? Try me. We don't hide. We hit back. Today. Right now, while they think we're still running." Caleb looked at her. "You want to walk into Houston? Into your own company building?" Not my company. Miranda's apartment. She lives in Midtown alone, and she's always home on Wednesday mornings working from home. Evelyn's voice was steady, determined. If we can get to her, get that file, we have something to work with. Evidence, a starting point. And Danny, there's a safe place, a women's shelter I've been donating to for years. They know me. They'll keep him safe, no questions asked. A shelter? Caleb's instinct screamed no. It's the only option we have. Unless you want to keep running until Marcus finds us. Because he will, Caleb. You saw how organized they are. It's only a matter of time. Danny poked his head up from the back seat. Dad, I'm scared. Caleb pulled over and turned around. Come here, buddy. Danny climbed into his lap, small and warm and trusting, and Caleb felt his heart crack. This was his son, his responsibility. The one thing in his life he absolutely could not fail at. But Evelyn was right. Running wasn't working, and eventually their luck would run out. Okay, Caleb said quietly. We go to Houston. But if anything feels wrong, anything at all, we abort. Deal? Deal. They drove south, back toward civilization, back toward danger. And Caleb prayed he wasn't about to make the worst decision of his life. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. Houston rose out of the flat Texas landscape like something from another world. Glass towers catching the afternoon sun. Highways stacked 3 levels deep. The kind of sprawling urban chaos that made Caleb's small town feel like it existed in a different century. They hit the outskirts around 2 p.m., and Caleb's hands were sweating on the steering wheel. Take 59 south, Evelyn said. She'd borrowed Danny's hoodie, way too small, but it covered her ruined dress and most of her face. The shelter's in the 3rd ward. About 15 minutes from here if traffic cooperates. Traffic didn't cooperate. They crawled through construction zones and lane closures, surrounded by BMWs and Teslas. Everyone in a hurry to get somewhere important. Caleb kept checking the mirrors, looking for black SUVs or anyone paying too much attention. Danny was quiet in his back seat, watching the buildings slide past. Dad, is this where Miss Evelyn lives? Used to, Evelyn said, before everything changed. Do you miss it? She thought about that. I miss parts of it. The view from my office, my assistant's terrible coffee, the feeling that I knew what I was doing. She glanced back at him. But mostly no, I don't miss it. Why not? Because it wasn't real. The people, the success, all of it. Just a very expensive illusion. What's an illusion? Something that looks real but isn't. Danny nodded like that made perfect sense. Like magic tricks. Exactly like magic tricks. The shelter was a converted warehouse with bars on the windows and a discreet sign that just said Safe Harbor in faded letters. Caleb pulled into the parking lot and killed the engine. You're sure about this? He asked Evelyn. The director's name is Patricia Moss. I've met her twice at fundraising events. She's solid. Evelyn looked at Danny. He'll be safe here. Safer than anywhere else right now. Caleb wanted to believe that, but every instinct he had was screaming not to let Danny out of his sight. Dad? Danny had that look on his face, the one that meant he understood more than he should. It's okay, I'm not scared. I know, buddy, but I am. Why? Because you're the most important thing in the world to me, and if something happened, nothing's gonna happen. Danny unbuckled his seatbelt. Miss Patricia will take care of me, and you'll come back. You always come back. The simplicity of that faith hit Caleb hard. He pulled Danny into a hug, holding on maybe a second too long. Inside, the shelter was exactly what you'd expect. Industrial carpet, fluorescent lights, walls covered with children's drawings and inspirational posters. A woman in her 50s looked up from the front desk, her expression shifting from cautious to shocked when she recognized Evelyn. Miss Sinclair? Patricia, I need a favor. Break it. Patricia's eyes went to Caleb, then Danny, then back to Evelyn. Taking in the borrowed hoodie, the mud still visible on her arms, the exhaustion written across her face. What kind of favor? Well, the kind where you don't ask questions and you keep this boy safe for a few hours. Is he in danger? He might be, I'm not sure. Evelyn's voice was steady but urgent. Please, I wouldn't ask if there was any other option. Patricia studied them for a long moment. Then she nodded. Come on back. Yeah, I should what be six. She led them through a hallway lined with closed doors, each one marked with a different number. The sound of children playing came from somewhere deeper in the building. Patricia stopped at a small office and gestured for them to sit. Talk, she said. So Evelyn did. Not everything, not the details about Marcus or the company or the men with guns, but enough. That she was in trouble. That Danny needed somewhere safe while they handled something urgent. That she trusted Patricia with her life, which meant she was trusting her with something even more valuable. Patricia listened without interrupting. When Evelyn finished, she turned to Caleb. And you're okay with this? Leaving your son with a stranger? Mom. Not even a little bit, Caleb said honestly. But the alternatives are worse. How long are we talking? Few hours. Maybe less if things go right. And if they don't go right? Caleb and Evelyn exchanged a look. Then you call this number, Caleb said, writing down Diane's information. That's his grandmother. She'll come get him immediately. Patricia took the paper. What's your name, sweetheart? Danny. Danny Ryder. Well, Danny, you like pizza? Eat. Danny's face lit up. Yes, ma'am? Good. Because we're having pizza for dinner tonight, and I could use someone to help me decide what toppings to order. Patricia stood. Come on, I'll introduce you to the other kids. Caleb walked Danny to the door, crouched down so they were eye level. I need you to listen to Miss Patricia, okay? Do exactly what she says. Don't leave the building. Don't talk to anyone you don't know. I won't. And if anyone asks about me or Miss Evelyn, you say you don't know. Can you do that? Yeah. Danny hugged him tight. Be careful, Dad. Always am, buddy. Watching Danny walk away with Patricia was one of the hardest things Caleb had ever done. Every instinct screamed to grab him, get back in the truck, drive somewhere far away and safe. But there was nowhere safe. Not anymore. Back in the truck, Evelyn was checking a burner phone she'd somehow acquired. Miranda lives in a high-rise on West Dallas, 18th floor. Building has security, cameras, the whole setup. So how do we get in? Food delivery. There's always someone ordering lunch. We wait for a driver, follow them through the door. That simple? You'd be surprised how bad security is when you're relying on minimum wage guards who don't care. Evelyn pulled the hoodie lower over her face. But we need to move. The board meeting is tomorrow morning. If I'm going to stop Marcus, I need that evidence today. Tapi what? They drove to Midtown, finding street parking 3 blocks from Miranda's building. The neighborhood was all sleek glass and steel, coffee shops and boutiques, people in business, casual hurrying between meetings. Caleb and Evelyn, still in their ruined clothes, stood out like a wound. Wait here, Evelyn said. If this goes wrong, stop planning for things to go wrong. Focus on them going right. She almost smiled. When did you become an optimist? Around the time I found you with a gun at a gas station and decided to get involved. They staked out the building entrance from across the street, watching the flow of residents and visitors. After 20 minutes, a delivery driver showed up on a motorcycle, insulated bag strapped to his back. He punched in a code and the door buzzed open. That's our window, Evelyn said. Let's go. They crossed the street casually like they belonged there and caught the door just before it clicked shut. Inside, the lobby was all marble and modern art, with a security desk manned by a guard who was deeply invested in his phone. Elevators on the right, Evelyn murmured. They walked past the guard without making eye contact, pressed the button, waited. Caleb could feel his heart hammering against his ribs. The elevator arrived empty. They stepped inside. Evelyn hit 18. This is crazy, Caleb said as the doors closed. Little late for second thoughts. I'm having about 15 thoughts at this point. That got a real laugh out of her. Short, but genuine. You and me both. The elevator climbed. 14, 15 scene, 16. When we get there, Evelyn said, let me do the talking. Miranda's smart, but she's also cautious. If she thinks you're a threat, got it. I'll play friendly mechanic. You are a friendly mechanic. Fair point. Ball, 18. The doors opened onto a hallway with cream-colored walls and soft lighting. Apartment 1804 was at the far end. Evelyn walked to it like she owned the place, knocked 3 times. Silence. She knocked again. "Miranda, it's me." Movement inside. The peephole darkened, then the sound of multiple locks disengaging. The door opened 6 inches, still chained. Miranda Chen was exactly what Caleb expected. Late 20s, sharp suit, even at home, eyes that missed nothing. Those eyes went wide when she saw Evelyn. "Oh my God." "I know. Can we come in?" "Is this... Are you..." Miranda looked at Caleb. "Who's he?" "A friend. Miranda, please. I don't have much time." The chain came off. The door opened. They stepped into an apartment that was obsessively organized. Books alphabetized, throw pillows perfectly arranged, not a single item out of place. Miranda locked the door behind them and turned around. "Everyone thinks you're dead." Evelyn blinked. "What?" "Marcus held a press conference this morning. Said you'd been missing for 3 days. That there were signs of a struggle at the gala. Police are investigating it as a possible abduction." Miranda's voice was shaking. "The entire company is in mourning. There's a memorial being planned. Your face is on every news channel." "He's declaring me dead? Already?" Ease. "Not officially, but the implication is clear." Miranda grabbed a remote and turned on the TV. Sure enough, there was Evelyn's photo. A professional headshot, smiling, confident, next to a headline that read, "Billionaire CEO missing, feared dead." "That bastard," Evelyn breathed. "He's not even waiting for the body." "There's more." Miranda muted the TV. The board moved up the meeting. It's tonight, 6 p.m. They're voting to install Marcus as interim CEO, citing the emergency circumstances. Tonight? That's... Evelyn checked the clock on the wall. "That's 3 hours from now." "I know, I tried to delay it, but I don't have that kind of authority. Marcus has been working the board all week, and with you gone..." Miranda's voice broke. "I thought you were actually dead." "I've been going through your files, trying to find something, anything that could prove he's lying. But it's all locked down. Every piece of evidence I need is on servers I can't access without his authorization." "Wait. What about the Dallas file? The acquisition I killed?" Miranda's expression changed. "You kept hard copies in your private safe at the office. Can you get to it?" "Not without being seen." "Marcus has security on every floor. He's locked down your office completely. Says he's preserving it as a crime scene." Miranda looked at Caleb. "Who are you really? Why are you helping her?" Long story," Caleb said. "Short version. Right place, wrong time, too stubborn to walk away." "Well, he saved my life," Evelyn added quietly. "Multiple times now." Miranda studied him for another moment, then seemed to decide he was acceptable. "Okay, so we need to get into your office, pass security, open your safe, and get the files in 3 hours." 2.5 now, Evelyn corrected. "And we can't just walk in the front door. Marcus will have my photo flagged with every guard in the building." "Then we go in the back. Service entrance. I have a key card that should work." Miranda was already moving, pulling a laptop from her desk. "But we need a distraction. Something big enough to pull security away from the executive floors." "Like what?" Caleb asked. "Like a fire alarm or a bomb threat." Miranda looked up. "I'm kidding about the bomb, mostly." "What about a delivery?" Evelyn suggested. "Something that requires multiple guards to verify. Create confusion." "That might work." Miranda was typing rapidly. "I can order a large shipment, have it arrive at exactly 6, loading dock entrance. While they're dealing with that, you slip in through the parking garage. And the cameras? I can loop the footage for about 90 seconds. Maybe 2 minutes if we're lucky. After that, you're on your own." Caleb watched them work, these 2 women who clearly knew each other's rhythms, finishing each other's sentences. This was what Evelyn had lost. Someone who had her back, who understood her without explanation. "There's one problem," Miranda said. "The safe in your office, it's biometric, needs your fingerprint and retinal scan." "I'm aware." Except Marcus claimed you were attacked, injured. He had the medical team come in yesterday, supposedly to check the safe for evidence of tampering. What they actually did was reset the biometrics to his fingerprints. Evelyn went very still. He locked me out of my own safe? Complete lockout. Even if you get there, you can't open it. The room fell silent. Outside, Houston hummed with traffic and commerce, people going about their normal lives while Evelyn's world continued to collapse. There has to be another way, Caleb said. Another copy of the files. Someone else who has access. There isn't, Evelyn said flatly. I kept those files locked down specifically because they were damaging. Proof that I turn down deals when the math doesn't work. That I'm not reckless or desperate. Marcus wanted that deal to go through. I said no. He was furious. So that's why he's burying them, Miranda said. Because they prove you were right and he was wrong. Which means getting them is even more critical. Evelyn paced the apartment. If we can't open the safe, we break into it. With what? Caleb asked. In 2 hours? In a building full of security? I know someone. Miranda pulled out her phone. David Park. He's a locksmith, but not the kind you find in the yellow pages. He's helped the company before with sensitive situations. You mean breaking and entering? I mean consulting on security vulnerabilities. Miranda was already dialing. He owes me a favor, a big one. While Miranda talked in rapid, hushed tones, Evelyn moved to the window. The city stretched out below, glittering and indifferent. Somewhere in one of those towers, Marcus was preparing for his coronation. Somewhere else, Lily was probably celebrating. And here was Evelyn, hiding in her assistant's apartment, planning a heist in her own building. He'll do it, Miranda said, hanging up. But he needs an hour prep time and payment up front, $5,000. I don't have $5,000, Evelyn said. I don't have $5. I do. Miranda was already moving to a bookshelf, pulling down a thick volume on corporate finance. Inside, hollowed out, was a stack of bills. Emergency fund. I always keep cash on hand for situations that require discretion. Miranda, don't. You've paid me well for 5 years. Consider it a loan. She handed over the cash. David will meet us at the parking garage entrance at 5:30. That gives him 30 minutes to crack the safe before the board meeting starts. What about security footage? Caleb asked. Even if we get in and out clean, they'll review the tapes eventually. Then we make sure there's nothing to review. Miranda's smile was sharp. I might not be able to stop the board vote, but I can definitely cause a catastrophic server failure. Complete data loss. Tragic technical malfunction. You'd lose your job. I'm going to lose it anyway. The second Marcus takes over, everyone loyal to you is gone. Miranda pulled on a jacket. So we might as well go out making things difficult for him, said. They spent the next hour planning. Miranda sketched out the building layout from memory. Every camera placement, every security checkpoint, the timing of guard rotations. David the locksmith arrived at Miranda's apartment 20 minutes later, a thin man in his 40s with the kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him. Show me what we're working with, he said, spreading tools across Miranda's coffee table. Evelyn described the safe, model, approximate age, the biometric system. David listened, asked pointed questions, and finally nodded. Doable, but not quietly. I'll need at least 20 minutes uninterrupted. You'll have it, Miranda promised. The distraction at the loading dock should pull most security down there. What about building management? David asked. They monitor everything from a central station. Which is where I'll be. Miranda held up her key card. I still have access to the security office. Once the delivery arrives and chaos starts, I'll handle the cameras. Caleb watched this unfold with a growing sense of unreality. 3 days ago, he was fixing transmissions and worrying about grocery money. Now he was part of a team planning to break into a corporate headquarters to steal files from a safe. This was insane, but he was in it now, no turning back. At 5:15, they left Miranda's apartment in 2 groups. Miranda went first, heading to the building via the front entrance, just another employee coming back from a late lunch. David followed 10 minutes later, tools hidden in a messenger bag. That left Caleb and Evelyn sitting in his truck 3 blocks away, waiting for the signal. You don't have to come inside, Evelyn said. Miranda and David can handle it. You've done more than enough. You think I'm backing out now, she? I think you have a son who needs you alive. She looked at him. This could go very wrong, Caleb. Marcus doesn't play fair. If he catches us, he won't. But if he does, then we deal with it together. Caleb started the engine. Besides, someone needs to watch your back. Might as well be the guy who's already seen you at your worst. This isn't my worst. You haven't seen me in a board meeting. Looking forward to it. Evelyn's phone buzzed. A text from Miranda. Delivery arriving. Go now. They drove to the building's parking garage, entering from the side street. The gate was up. Miranda had apparently disabled it remotely. Inside, the concrete structure was dim and mostly empty at this hour. Caleb found a spot near the service elevator and killed the engine. Ready? Evelyn asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They took the service elevator to the 15th floor, one below the executive level, to avoid direct camera sight. The hallway was utilitarian, all concrete and exposed pipes, nothing like the polished corporate spaces above. David was waiting by the stairwell door. Cameras are looped, he said without preamble. We have 90 seconds to reach the office. Move. They took the stairs at a run, bursting onto the 16th floor. The executive level was glass and chrome, sleek and silent. Evelyn's office was at the far end, behind double doors that probably cost more than Caleb's truck. The doors were locked. David had them open in under 10 seconds. Inside, the office was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown, furniture that looked like modern art, a desk the size of a small car. Everything was pristine, untouched, like a museum exhibit. And on the wall behind the desk, a painting that Caleb recognized from his one art history class in community college. Is that real? He asked. Rothko, worth about $12 million. Evelyn barely glanced at it. She was already at the wall pressing a hidden panel. A section swung open, revealing the safe. David? David moved in, examining the biometric scanner with a jeweler's precision. Yeah, this has definitely been reset, but the mechanical lock underneath is older. I can work with that. He pulled out a stethoscope and what looked like a dentist's drill. Give me 20 minutes. You said 20 before. I lied. It's going to be closer to 30. Evelyn cursed under her breath. We don't have 30 minutes. The board meeting starts at 6. Then I'll work fast, but I can't promise miracles. A loud crash echoed from somewhere below, shouting, the sound of people running. That's our distraction, Evelyn said. Miranda must have ordered something heavy. Or explosive, David muttered, not looking up from the safe. Caleb moved to the window, watching the street below. Police cars were arriving, fire trucks. Whatever Miranda had done, it was working. The entire building's attention was focused on the loading dock. Time crawled. David worked with steady, patient precision, occasionally muttering to himself. Evelyn paced like a caged animal. Caleb kept watch at the door, listening for footsteps that never came. 20 minutes passed. Then 25. David, Evelyn said, please tell me you're close. Almost. This lock is tricky. Whoever installed it knew what they were doing. That's because I had you install it 3 years ago. Did I? Huh. I do good work. At minute 28, something clicked. David pulled the safe door open with a satisfied grunt. And that's why you pay me the big bucks. Inside the safe were files, dozens of them, organized with the kind of obsessive precision Caleb was starting to recognize as Evelyn's trademark. She grabbed the one labeled Dallas Acquisition, Rejected, and flipped it open. It's all here, she breathed. Financial projections, risk assessments, the email where Marcus pushed me to approve it anyway. All of it. Then let's get out of here, Caleb said. They were halfway to the door when they heard voices in the hallway. Told you I heard something up here. Building's on high alert. We need to check every floor. 3 voices, getting closer. Closet, Evelyn hissed. Now. They scrambled into a storage closet barely big enough for 1 person, let alone 3. David pulled the door shut just as the office doors opened. Through the crack, Caleb could see 2 security guards and a man in an expensive suit entering. Ms. Sinclair's office, one guard was saying. Mr. Ward wanted it checked hourly. Looks clear to me. Still, standard sweep. They moved through the office methodically. One guard checked behind the desk. The other inspected the windows. The suit, presumably, stood by the door, talking into his phone. No signs of entry. Safe is still secure. We're moving to the next floor. Caleb felt Evelyn's breath against his neck, shallow and fast. David's elbow was digging into his ribs. They were pressed together so tightly that Caleb could feel every heartbeat. The guards finished their sweep, turned to leave. Then one of them stopped. "Hey, is that safe supposed to be open?" Silence. "What?" "The safe. Behind the painting. It's open." Footsteps. Rapid, moving towards the wall. "How the hell?" "Call it in. Now." The closet door was yanked open. Light flooded in. A guard stared at them with an expression of complete shock. "Run," Evelyn said. They exploded out of the closet. David swung his tool bag at the first guard, catching him across the temple. The man went down hard. Caleb grabbed the second guard's radio before he could use it, twisting it out of his hands. The suit pulled out a phone. Evelyn kicked his knee. The man yelped and dropped the phone. She scooped it up and threw it out the window in one smooth motion. "Go!" she shouted. They ran. Down the hallway toward the stairs, the file clutched in Evelyn's hands. Behind them, alarms started blaring. Doors opened. More voices, more footsteps, more chaos. They hit the stairwell at full speed, taking the steps 3 at a time. 15. 14. 13. Caleb's lungs were burning and his mind was racing through contingencies, exit strategies, ways this could go wrong. They burst into the parking garage on level 2, sprinting toward the truck. David peeled off toward his own car with a quick salute. Caleb and Evelyn kept running. The truck roared to life. Caleb floored it, tires squealing on concrete. They shot toward the exit, and Caleb prayed the gate would still be up. It was. They blasted through and onto the street, merging into traffic like they belonged there. 3 blocks away, Caleb finally let himself breathe. "Did we just—" "Yeah," Evelyn said. She was clutching the file to her chest, laughing and shaking at the same time. "We really did. That was the stupidest thing I've ever done. You were amazing. I assaulted a security guard. He'll live." Evelyn looked at the file. "But now we have proof. Real documented proof that I'm not unstable. That I make careful, rational decisions. And Marcus? Marcus is about to have a very bad day." Caleb's phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Danny's fine, watching a movie, no rush. The relief almost made him dizzy." "Okay, so what now?" "Now?" Evelyn checked her watch. "Now we crash a board meeting." They couldn't exactly walk into a board meeting looking like they'd been living in the woods for 3 days, which was the truth. Evelyn made a call to Miranda from a gas station payphone 2 miles from Sinclair Tower, speaking in code that sounded ridiculous to Caleb, but apparently made perfect sense to her assistant. "She's meeting us at her place," Evelyn said, hanging up. "We've got 40 minutes to make me look like someone worth $50 billion again. And me, you're going to be my head of security. Just stand there and look intimidating. I fix cars for a living." "Then stand there and look like someone who could fix someone's face if they got out of line." They made it back to Miranda's apartment with 35 minutes to spare. Miranda had the door open before they knocked, pulling them inside with the urgency of someone defusing a bomb. "The entire building is on lockdown," she said. "Marcus is losing his mind. He knows someone got into your office, knows the safe was opened, but he can't figure out who or how. He's convinced it was an inside job." "He's not wrong," Evelyn said. "Security footage is corrupted. Complete data loss for the entire afternoon. IT is calling it a catastrophic server failure." Miranda allowed herself a small smile. "Funny how these things happen." "You're terrifying," Caleb said. "Thank you. Now, clothes. Evelyn, you're about my size. I've got suits in the closet. Pick something that says, 'I'm not dead and I'm about to ruin your whole career.'" "Bine? What y-y-t?" While Evelyn changed, Miranda turned her attention to Caleb. "You're bigger, but I think—" She disappeared into another room and returned with a dark suit on a hanger. "My brother left this here last Christmas. He's about your build." The suit fit better than Caleb expected. Looking at himself in the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back. He looked professional, dangerous even, like someone who belonged in rooms where billion-dollar decisions got made. Evelyn emerged from the bedroom in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Caleb made in 6 months. Her hair was pulled back tight, makeup applied with precision that hid the exhaustion and stress. She looked every inch the CEO again, sharp, controlled, ready for war. "How do I look?" she asked. "Like someone I'd be afraid to negotiate with," Caleb said honestly. "Perfect." She checked her watch. 20 minutes. Miranda, are the federal investigators confirmed? They'll be there. I called from a burner and said I had evidence of corporate fraud and securities violations. They take that stuff seriously. Miranda handed Evelyn an earpiece. "I'll be monitoring from here. If anything goes wrong, I'll know immediately." Define wrong. If Marcus tries to have you arrested, if security moves to remove you, if anyone pulls a weapon. Miranda's expression was grim. "He's desperate, Evelyn. Desperate people do stupid things." "Then it's a good thing I'm bringing backup." Evelyn looked at Caleb. "You ready for this?" "Still no, but that hasn't stopped us yet." They took Miranda's car, a sensible Honda that wouldn't draw attention. The drive back to Sinclair Tower took 12 minutes through early evening traffic, and Caleb spent the entire time running through worst-case scenarios. What if they couldn't get past building security? What if Marcus had them arrested the moment they walked in? What if the board voted before Evelyn could present her evidence? "Stop thinking so loud, Evelyn said. "I can hear you catastrophizing from here." "Just running contingencies. We walk in, we go straight to the boardroom, and I prove Marcus is a lying fraud. Simple. Nothing about this is simple." "No," she agreed, "but it's necessary." They parked in a garage 2 blocks away and walked the rest. As they approached the tower, Caleb could see increased security presence. Guards at every entrance, police cars stationed at intervals, news vans setting up across the street. Word of the break-in had leaked, and the media smelled blood. "Back entrance," Evelyn murmured. "Service door on Lamar Street." The service entrance was guarded by a single security officer Caleb didn't recognize. The man looked up from his phone as they approached, his hand automatically moving toward his radio. "This entrance is restricted," he said. "Main lobby is around front. I'm Evelyn Sinclair. This is my building." The guard stared. His face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally something like fear. "Ms. Sinclair, we were told everyone thinks you're dead? I'm aware. Now let me inside before I decide you're fired." The guard stepped aside so fast he nearly tripped. They walked past him into the service corridor, and Caleb heard him frantically speaking into his radio. Control? You're not going to believe this, but..." "They know we're here now," Evelyn said calmly, "which means we move fast." They took the service elevator straight to the 20th floor, the executive boardroom. Caleb's heart was hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. The elevator climbed with agonizing slowness, floor numbers ticking past. 15, 16, 17. "Evelyn," Caleb said, "what's the actual plan here? You walk in, drop the file on the table, and everyone just believes you?" "Madam, no. I walk in, present documented evidence of Marcus's manipulation, and force the board to postpone the vote until a proper investigation can be conducted. Then I introduce federal investigators who've been waiting for exactly this kind of case. And if Marcus doesn't let you talk? That's what you're for. I'm not intimidating. I fix transmissions. You broke a man's nose in Afghanistan. Miranda pulled your service record." Caleb went cold. "She what?" "The due diligence. I needed to know who I was trusting with my life." Evelyn met his eyes. "You saved 3 men from a burning vehicle under enemy fire. You have a silver star and a purple heart you never told anyone about. And you once held a position against 20 insurgents for 6 hours until reinforcements arrived. Those files are supposed to be classified. Miranda is very good at her job." The elevator chimed. 20th floor. The doors opened onto chaos. Security personnel rushing past, phones ringing, voices shouting conflicting orders. No one paid attention to Caleb and Evelyn as they stepped out and walked toward the boardroom at the end of the hall. Through the glass walls, Caleb could see them. 12 people seated around an enormous table, older men in expensive suits, a few women who looked equally powerful, all of them focused on the man standing at the head. Marcus Ward. Mid-30s, movie star handsome, gesturing with the confidence of someone who'd already won. Next to him sat a woman Caleb immediately recognized as Lily Sinclair. Younger than Evelyn, blonde where her sister was dark, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Danny's entire wardrobe. She was smiling. Evelyn stopped outside the boardroom door, took a breath, squared her shoulders. Once we go through that door, she said quietly, everything changes. If you want to walk away, now's your chance. I'm not walking away. This is going to get ugly. Already ugly, might as well see it through. She nodded once, then she pushed open the door and walked into the room like she owned it. Because until a few days ago, she had. The reaction was immediate. Someone gasped. Someone else dropped their phone. Marcus froze mid-sentence, his face going from confident to horrified in the span of a heartbeat. Lily went white. Evening, everyone, Evelyn said pleasantly. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was absolute, broken only by the sound of someone's chair scraping against the floor as they stood. Then Marcus found his voice. Security, get her out of here. Now. Sit down, Marcus, Evelyn said. She moved to the opposite end of the table, Caleb falling into position slightly behind her. We're going to have a conversation about fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. And you're going to listen, Saki. You're supposed to be missing, possibly dead. Marcus's voice was climbing toward panic. Where have you been? Somewhere you couldn't find me, though you certainly tried. Evelyn laid the file on the table. But let's talk about what you've been doing in my absence. Specifically, the part where you've been systematically dismantling my credibility while positioning yourself to steal my company. That's insane. Is it? Because I have documentation here that tells a different story. She opened the file, pulling out pages. This is the Dallas acquisition proposal. Remember this, Marcus? The deal you wanted me to approve last year? That has nothing to do with... I rejected it. After extensive analysis, I determined the financial projections were inflated, the risk assessment was inadequate, and proceeding would have exposed the company to significant liability. Evelyn slid papers across the table to the nearest board member. Here's my complete breakdown. 40 pages of careful, rational analysis. Does this look like the work of someone unstable? The board member, an older woman Caleb didn't recognize, picked up the papers and started reading. Others leaned in to look. You were wrong, Marcus said. His voice had steadied, taking on the smooth quality of someone who sold lies for a living. That deal would have been profitable. Your rejection cost us millions. My rejection saved us from a lawsuit that would have cost us billions. Evelyn pulled out another document. This is the report filed 6 months after we passed on Dallas. The company we would have acquired is now under federal investigation for securities fraud. Every investor who went in is facing criminal charges. More papers distributed. More board members reading with increasing concern. How convenient that you suddenly have all this documentation, Marcus said. When just days ago you were having a complete breakdown, attacking me, destroying property, acting erratically. I was upset, Evelyn said calmly, because I walked in on you sleeping with my sister in my house. That would make anyone upset. Lily spoke for the first time, her voice high and defensive. That's not what happened. You attacked us. You were screaming, throwing things. I threw a lamp, one lamp, after finding you in bed with my fiancé. I think that's a fairly reasonable response. Evelyn looked at the board. What's not reasonable is using that moment to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. What's not reasonable is freezing my bank accounts, locking me out of my own systems, and declaring me missing when you knew exactly where I was. We didn't know where you were, Marcus snapped. You disappeared, drove off in the middle of the night. We've had teams searching for days. Teams with guns, Evelyn said. Teams that found me at a motel and would have done what, Marcus? Brought me back safely? Or made sure I never came back at all? The boardroom went very quiet. That's a serious accusation, one of the board members said. An older man with steel gray hair. Do you have proof? I have testimony. The man who helped me escape those teams is standing right here. Evelyn gestured to Caleb. Caleb Ryder, former Marine, current mechanic. No financial interest in this company whatsoever. Tell them what you saw at the motel, Caleb. All eyes turned to him. Caleb had been in firefights where he felt less pressure than this moment, but he straightened up and spoke clearly. 3 men in a black Suburban. They had a photo of Miss Sinclair. They were checking every room. One of them had a suppressed firearm. When I asked if they were police, they said no. They weren't there to rescue anyone. He's lying, Marcus said immediately. You're paying him to say this. With what money? You froze all my accounts, remember? Evelyn's smile was sharp. Besides, if I was going to pay someone to lie, I'd hire a better actor. No offense, Caleb. None taken. The door opened. Miranda stepped in, followed by 2 people in federal badges. Sorry to interrupt. These are Special Agents Morrison and Chen from the FBI. They've been briefed on the situation and would like to ask some questions. Marcus's face went from pale to gray. This is outrageous. You can't just bring federal agents into a private board meeting. No, actually we can, Agent Morrison said. He was in his 40s, built like someone who enjoyed marathon running, with eyes that missed nothing. When we receive credible reports of securities fraud, corporate espionage, and possible attempted murder, we take it very seriously. Attempted murder? She's making this up. Is she? Agent Chen, a woman slightly younger than her partner, pulled out a tablet. Because we've been monitoring some very interesting communications. Phone calls between you and a private security firm. Payments made from offshore accounts. Instructions to locate and contain Ms. Sinclair. She looked up. Want to explain what contain means in this context? Marcus's lawyer instincts kicked in. I'm not saying anything without my attorney present. That's your right, but this board meeting is about to get very complicated. Morrison looked at the assembled members. I'd recommend postponing any votes until we've completed our investigation, which, given the evidence we're reviewing, could take several weeks. The board erupted in overlapping conversations, some demanding answers, others already pulling out phones to call their own lawyers. The careful corporate decorum dissolved into barely controlled chaos. Through it all, Marcus stood frozen, and Caleb could see the exact moment the man realized he'd lost. Not just the company, everything. His entire carefully constructed plan unraveling in real time. Lily started crying. Quiet at first, then louder. I didn't know, she said to no one in particular. I didn't know he was going to do all this. He said, he told me we were just getting what we deserved. That Evelyn had too much power, and we were balancing it out. You were embezzling, Evelyn said flatly. Miranda found the transfers. $300,000 over 8 months. From company accounts into your personal holdings. Marcus said it was fine. He said it was compensation for the work I was doing. You worked 15 hours a week, in a position I created specifically so you'd have somewhere to go after you flunked out of business school. Evelyn's voice was ice. I gave you everything, Lily, and you helped him destroy me. I wasn't trying to... Lily dissolved into tears. Caleb felt something twist in his chest. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition of how people could convince themselves that terrible things were justified. How easy it was to believe lies when they came from someone you wanted to trust. The gray-haired board member, the chairman, Caleb realized, stood up. This meeting is postponed indefinitely. Ms. Sinclair retains her position as CEO pending the federal investigation. Mr. Ward, you're suspended immediately. Ms. Sinclair, he paused, seeming to recalibrate. Lily, you're also suspended. I suggest you both contact your attorneys. This is a witch hunt, Marcus said, but there was no conviction in it. He was already calculating his next move, looking for the exit strategy. This is consequences, Evelyn said. Something you're not used to, but you're about to get very familiar with them. Agent Morrison stepped forward. Mr. Ward, we're going to need you to come with us. We have questions about the security firm you hired and the nature of your instructions. Am I under arrest? Not yet, but that could change very quickly depending on your level of cooperation. Marcus looked around the room, at the board members who wouldn't meet his eyes, at Lily still crying, at Evelyn standing there calm and unmoved. Then his gaze landed on Caleb, and something ugly flickered across his face. Who the hell are you, anyway? Some nobody mechanic she picked up? You think you're a hero? Marcus's voice was venomous. You've got no idea what you've stepped into. The lawyers, the lawsuits, the people who are going to come after her, after you, for ruining this. I'm the nobody mechanic who kept her alive while you were trying to kill her, Caleb said evenly. So yeah, I'm good with that. You'll regret this. I've regretted plenty of things in my life. This isn't one of them. Agent Morrison took Marcus by the arm. Let's go. We can continue this conversation somewhere more private. As Marcus was led out, he looked back once at Evelyn. Whatever he saw in her face made him look away quickly. Then he was gone, and the boardroom felt like it could breathe again. The chairman turned to Evelyn. This is unprecedented. The media coverage alone is going to be catastrophic. We need crisis management, legal teams, a complete communication strategy. I'll handle it, Evelyn said. But first, I need a few days to rest, to process, to figure out what comes next. The company can't just pause because the company will be fine. You have excellent division heads who've been running their departments independently for years. Let them do their jobs. Evelyn gathered her files. I'll be back next week. Until then, Miranda Chen will serve as my interim representative. Any decisions that require CEO approval go through her. Ms. Sinclair, that's non-negotiable. I've spent the last 3 days running for my life. I think I've earned a few days to recover. The chairman looked like he wanted to argue. The chairman looked like... Then he saw something in Evelyn's expression and nodded. Fine, but we'll need you for the federal investigation. They'll have questions. I'll make myself available through my attorney, who isn't Marcus's attorney anymore. She turned and walked out. Caleb followed, and Miranda fell into step beside them. They made it to the elevator before anyone could stop them, and the doors closed on a boardroom still erupting in frantic conversation. The elevator descended in silence. Then Evelyn started laughing. Not the broken sound from the gas station, but something genuine and almost disbelieving. We did it, she said. We actually did it. You did it, Miranda corrected. I just provided logistical support. And I just stood there looking tough, Caleb added. You were very intimidating. That marine stare really sells. Evelyn was still smiling. Marcus's face when the FBI walked in. I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. He's going to lawyer up and fight this, Miranda warned. He's got resources, connections. So do I. And now I've got something else. Proof that I'm not the unstable one. That every decision I made was calculated and rational. Evelyn's smile faded slightly. It's going to be messy. You were right about that. The lawsuits alone will take years. But you'll win. Eventually, maybe. She looked at Caleb. And what about you? You just became part of a very public corporate scandal. Your name is about to be everywhere. Caleb hadn't thought about that. The media attention, the questions, the way his quiet life was about to get very loud. I'll deal with it, he said. Not like I have a choice now. You always had a choice. You could have walked away at any point. No, Caleb said. I really couldn't. The elevator reached the ground floor. They stepped out into the lobby, and immediately cameras started flashing. The news crews had gotten inside somehow, and they were shouting questions, pushing forward, creating a wall of noise and light. Miss Sinclair, is it true you were kidnapped? Who's the man with you? Did your fiancé really try to kill you? Is your sister going to prison? Security was trying to push them back, but there were too many. Caleb moved instinctively, positioning himself between Evelyn and the cameras, clearing a path toward the exit. No comment? Evelyn said calmly, repeatedly. No comment. We'll release a statement tomorrow. They made it outside. Miranda's car was blocked in by news vans, so they kept walking. 3 blocks. 4. Until the noise faded and they were just 3 people on a sidewalk in downtown Houston. I need to get Danny, Caleb said. He's been at the shelter for hours. I'll drive you, Miranda offered. My car's probably impounded by now anyway. They caught a cab. The driver recognized Evelyn immediately. Her face was apparently all over the news, but had the good sense not to say anything. He just drove. The shelter looked exactly the same as when they'd left it. Patricia met them at the door with Danny, who threw himself at Caleb with enough force to nearly knock him over. Dad, you're back. Did you finish the secret adventure? Yeah, buddy, all done. Did you win? Caleb looked at Evelyn, who was watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. Yeah, we won. Cool. Can we get McDonald's now? Miss Patricia made vegetables for dinner, and they were gross. They were carrots, Patricia said dryly. And you ate 3 helpings. That doesn't mean they weren't gross. Caleb laughed, and it felt like releasing pressure that had been building for days. Yeah, we can get McDonald's. Can Miss Evelyn come? Everyone looked at Evelyn. She seemed surprised by the question. I don't want to intrude on your celebration. You're not intruding, Danny said with the absolute certainty of an 8-year-old. You're part of the team. Teams celebrate together, right, Dad? Right. So they went to McDonald's. The 4 of them, Caleb, Danny, Evelyn, and Miranda, sitting in a booth eating Big Macs and fries, while cable news played on the TV mounted in the corner. There was Evelyn's face, over and over, next to headlines about corporate fraud and family betrayal and dramatic returns from the dead. You're famous, Danny told her, impressed. I was already famous. Now I'm infamous. What's the difference? Us. Famous is good attention. Infamous is bad attention mixed with good stories. Which one is better? Evelyn thought about that. I'm still figuring it out. They ate and talked about normal things. Danny's school, the science project he had due next week, whether dinosaurs would beat dragons in a fight. Miranda checked her phone constantly, fielding calls and messages, coordinating damage control. But even she seemed more relaxed than she'd been in days. Around 9 p.m., Miranda got a call that made her expression go serious. She stepped outside to take it. When she came back, she looked at Evelyn. That was our PR team. They want to schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning. Full statement, answer questions, control the narrative before it gets away from us. Tomorrow? Evelyn looked exhausted suddenly, the adrenaline finally wearing off. Can we push it? The longer we wait, the more speculation builds, and Marcus's team is already spinning their version. We need to get ahead of it. What time? 10 a.m. at the downtown Marriott, neutral territory. Evelyn nodded slowly. Okay, set it up. But I want you there. And legal. And she looked at Caleb. Would you stand with me at the press conference? Me? I don't do public speaking. You don't have to speak. Just be there. Show that I had someone on my side through all this. Her voice was quiet. Please. Caleb thought about his shop, closed for 3 days now. About the bills piling up and the customers probably calling other mechanics. About how much easier it would be to just go home, go back to his life, let Evelyn handle her world without him. But Danny was looking at him with those 2 smart eyes, and Evelyn was looking at him like he was something solid in a world that had proven itself unstable. And Caleb had never been good at walking away when someone needed him. Yeah, he said, I'll be there. They dropped Miranda at her apartment and drove Danny back to Diane's house. His mother-in-law opened the door in her bathrobe, took one look at Caleb's face, and pulled him into a hug. I saw the news, she said quietly. Are you okay? Getting there. And the boy? Safe. Always safe. Diane pulled back and looked at Evelyn, still sitting in the truck. That's her? The billionaire? That's her, She's pretty. Diane. I'm just saying. And she's looking at you like, well, like something. Diane squeezed his arm. You did a good thing, Caleb. Sarah would be proud. The words hit harder than he expected. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Danny went inside after extracting a promise that they'd do something fun this weekend. Just the 2 of them. No more secret adventures. Caleb promised, even though he had no idea how he was going to explain any of this to an 8-year-old in a way that made sense. He got back in the truck. Evelyn had moved to the passenger seat, staring out at the dark street. Where to? Caleb asked. I don't know. I can't go home. That place is a crime scene now. Hotels are going to be swarmed with press. Miranda's apartment is too small. She laughed without humor. The richest woman in Texas and I have nowhere to sleep. You could stay with me. She looked at him. Your place? It's not fancy, probably not even clean. but it's got a couch and a door that locks. And nobody knows about it. Caleb, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. He started the engine. Besides, someone needs to make sure you actually rest before that press conference. Left to your own devices, you'd probably work all night. That's not inaccurate. They drove to his house, a small rental on the edge of town with a yard that needed mowing and paint peeling off the shutters. Caleb unlocked the door, suddenly seeing it through her eyes. The worn furniture, the stack of bills on the kitchen counter, the toys scattered across the living room floor. Sorry about the mess. It's perfect, Evelyn said. And weirdly, she sounded like she meant it. He showed her the bathroom, found her a clean towel, and one of his old Marines t-shirts to sleep in. Made up the couch with sheets that were probably clean enough. Stood awkwardly in his own living room, not sure what else to offer. Thank you, Evelyn said finally, for everything. The last few days, I wouldn't have survived without you. You're tougher than you think. Maybe, but I didn't have to be tough alone. That made all the difference. She sat down on the couch. What happens now? After tomorrow? You rebuild. Take back your company. Figure out your life. And you? I go back to fixing cars, raising Danny, living quiet. He shrugged. Same as always. That doesn't seem fair. You saved my life multiple times and you just go back to being broke? I'm not broke. I'm cash poor. There's a difference. Caleb, I don't want your money, Evelyn. That's not why I helped you. I know that, but no buts. We did what needed doing. Now we move forward. He headed toward his bedroom, then stopped. But maybe we stay friends? After all this? I'd like that. She smiled. I'd like that too. Caleb went to bed but couldn't sleep. His mind kept replaying the last 3 days on a loop, finding Evelyn at that gas station, the motel, the woods, the heist, the boardroom, how quickly everything had changed, how easily he could have driven past that abandoned Texaco and never looked back. Around 2 a.m., he heard movement from the living room, found Evelyn sitting on the couch, staring at her phone. Can't sleep? He asked. Too much in my head. The press conference, what I'm going to say, how to explain all of this without sounding insane. She looked up. Did you know Marcus proposed to me a year ago? On the beach in Malibu. Sunset, champagne, the whole romantic setup. And I said yes without hesitation because I thought, finally. Finally someone who understands this life. Who won't ask me to slow down or change or be less? Turns out, he just wanted what you built. Yeah, turns out, as she set down her phone, I don't trust my own judgment anymore. How do I go back to making decisions that affect thousands of people when I couldn't even see what was happening in my own life? You make mistakes. You learn. You do better next time. That's it? That's your wisdom? I'm a mechanic. We don't do complicated. Caleb sat down on the other end of the couch. But I know this. People are going to fail you. People are going to lie and disappoint and break your heart. That doesn't mean you were stupid for trusting them. It means they were terrible at being trusted. That's not bad wisdom. I have my moments. They sat in comfortable silence. Outside, a dog barked. A car drove past. The normal sounds of a small town at night. I'm going to offer you a job, Evelyn said abruptly. What? Head of personal security, good salary, benefits, probably boring most of the time, but occasionally dramatic. Interested? I run a garage. You ran a garage. Now you're going to be famous as the man who saved Evelyn Sinclair. Your shop is going to be swarmed. Every journalist in Texas will want an interview. Your quiet life is over either way. She wasn't wrong. Caleb had been avoiding that reality, but it was coming regardless. Think about it, Evelyn said. You don't have to decide tonight, but the offer stands, for however long you want it. What about Danny? He comes too. I'll set up proper schooling, make sure he's protected, whatever he needs. She paused. I know what you're going to say, that you don't need my charity, but this isn't charity. This is me hiring someone I trust. Someone who's already proven they'll protect me even when it makes their life harder. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. They talked until dawn started creeping through the windows. About nothing important and everything that mattered. And somewhere in those quiet hours, Caleb realized that his life had changed in ways he couldn't fully understand yet, that the man who'd driven past an abandoned gas station 3 days ago was gone, and whoever he was becoming was going to be shaped by the choice he'd made to stop. When sunlight finally broke through, they made coffee and got ready for the press conference. Evelyn borrowed another of Miranda's suits, delivered at 6 a.m. by an assistant Caleb hadn't met. He put on the borrowed suit from yesterday, still not quite believing it fit. They drove to the Marriott in silence, both of them preparing for what came next. The press conference was chaos. A ballroom packed with journalists, cameras, lights hot enough to make sweat immediately, questions shouted before Evelyn even reached the podium. But she handled it with the same icy control she'd shown in the boardroom. She told her story, simply, directly, without drama. Found the betrayal. Escaped the people hunting her. Gathered evidence. Exposed the truth. She thanked the FBI, thanked her legal team, thanked Miranda for her loyalty through everything. Then she did something unexpected. She looked directly at Caleb, standing off to the side, and said, "And I owe my life to Caleb Ryder, who helped me when he had every reason to walk away. He's proof that good people still exist, that kindness isn't dead, that sometimes a stranger becomes the most important person in your story." The cameras swiveled, lights blinded him. Questions erupted. And Caleb stood there, uncomfortable and out of place, and realized this was his life now, for better or worse. The press conference ended after an hour. They escaped through a service exit, Miranda running interference with security, made it to the parking garage, and finally could breathe. "That was brutal," Evelyn said. "You did great." I stuttered twice and almost cried when someone asked about Lily. "You held it together. That's what mattered." She leaned against Miranda's car, exhausted. "What now?" "Now?" Caleb checked his watch. "Now I pick up Danny from school, take him for ice cream, try to explain why Dad's suddenly on TV. And after that? After that, I fix some cars, pay some bills, live my life." He smiled. "Boring stuff. Boring sounds good." Ish. They stood there as the parking garage, two people who'd been through hell together, and Caleb realized he was going to miss this. The intensity, the purpose, the feeling that what he did mattered on a scale bigger than transmission repair. But Danny was waiting, and real life was calling. "Think about the job offer," Evelyn said as he turned to go. "I will. And Caleb?" He looked back. "Thank you for everything, for saving my life, and for showing me what actually matters. Any time." He walked away, back to his truck, back to his world. But something had shifted. And as he drove toward Danny's school, Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. That somehow, some way, his story and Evelyn Sinclair's were going to keep intersecting. He just didn't know how yet. 6 months passed before Caleb really understood what had changed. The garage stayed open, though the customers were different now. People drove from 3 towns over just to shake his hand, to say they'd met the man from the news. Some wanted autographs. Some wanted to tell him their own stories about helping strangers or being helped. Most just wanted to stare for a minute, like he was some kind of exhibit, then get their oil changed and leave. Danny handled the attention better than Caleb did. The other kids at school thought having a famous dad was cool for about 2 weeks, then went back to caring about more important things like Pokemon cards and who got picked first for kickball. His son's resilience amazed him daily. Evelyn called every few weeks, sometimes to check in, sometimes to repeat her job offer, which Caleb kept politely declining, mostly just to talk about the ongoing legal battles with Marcus, 3 lawsuits and counting, about Lily, who'd taken a plea deal and was doing community service instead of prison time, about rebuilding a company when half the executives had quit and the other half were under investigation. "You should visit," she said one Thursday evening in March. "See the new office setup. Meet the team that's not corrupt." "I'm busy," Caleb said, phone tucked against his shoulder while he inventoried parts. "Got 4 cars lined up tomorrow, and Danny's got a science fair project due Monday we haven't started." "What's the project?" "Volcanoes, I think. Or maybe solar systems. He keeps changing his mind." "Voici un straight. Bring him here. We've got a whole R&D lab. Engineers who'd love to help an 8-year-old build something that probably violates fire codes." Caleb laughed despite himself. "That's a terrible idea. Most of my ideas are terrible. That's why I need people to tell me no. She paused. Come on, one weekend. I'll send a car. I have a car. I'll send a nicer car. Evelyn, please, I want you to see what we built, what you helped save. The vulnerability in that last sentence got him. It always did. For all her confidence and power, Evelyn still had moments where she needed someone to witness her progress. To confirm it was real. One weekend, Caleb agreed, but we're driving ourselves, and Danny picks where we eat. Deal. They made the trip on a Saturday morning, Danny bouncing in the back seat with excitement about visiting Miss Evelyn's fancy building. The Houston skyline appeared on the horizon around noon, glass towers reflecting sun like mirrors, and Caleb felt that familiar tightness in his chest. Cities still made him nervous. Too many people, too many variables, too many ways things could go wrong. But Evelyn met them in the parking garage personally, which wasn't necessary but was very her. She'd cut her hair shorter and she looked healthier than she had 6 months ago. Less like someone running on fumes and more like someone who'd remembered how to sleep. You came, she said, like she'd actually doubted it. Said I would. Miss Evelyn. Danny launched himself at her for a hug. She caught him, stumbling slightly, and her laugh was genuine. Hey kiddo, ready for the tour? Are there robots? We have engineering prototypes. That's basically robots. Close enough. The building had changed since Caleb's last visit. More security, which made sense given everything, but also more life. People actually smiled in the hallways. The tension that had hung over everything during the crisis was gone, replaced by something that felt almost normal. Evelyn's office was different too. Still huge, still expensive, but less intimidating. She'd added photos. Her parents, from what Caleb could tell. A picture of her and Miranda at some work event, both of them laughing. And unexpectedly, a photo from the press conference. Evelyn at the podium and Caleb visible in the background, slightly out of focus but clearly present. You kept that? Caleb asked. Reminder of the day I took my life back. She saw him looking at the other photos. I'm trying to remember I'm a person and not just a position. My therapist says it's important. You're seeing a therapist? 3 times a week. Turns out having your family betray you and nearly getting killed leaves some psychological marks. She said it lightly, but Caleb heard the truth underneath. She's helping. It's slow, but it's helping. Danny was already exploring, fascinated by everything. He found a Newton's cradle on her desk and spent 5 minutes making it click, utterly absorbed. Your offer still open? Caleb asked quietly. Evelyn looked up sharply. The security position? Not that one, but you mentioned once needing people who tell you no. People who care about the right things instead of just profit. He shrugged. Maybe I could consult, part-time, help you figure out which deals actually make sense for regular people instead of just shareholders. You want to work here? I want to make sure what happened to you doesn't happen to someone else. Your company buys failing businesses, right? Restructures them? That affects real people. Workers who lose jobs, families who lose income. Caleb met her eyes. Someone should be in those meetings asking what happens to them. Evelyn stared at him. You're serious. I'm serious. When did you think of this? About 3 months ago. Took me this long to convince myself it wasn't crazy. He looked around the office. You saved my life too, you know, not physically. But before I met you, I was just surviving, working, raising Danny, existing. You reminded me there's more to life than just getting through the day. I reminded you of that? You had to save me from a gas station armed encounter. You showed me people could rebuild, that losing everything wasn't the end. Caleb smiled. Besides, Danny likes you, and he's a good judge of character. Dad says you're nice, Danny offered, still playing with the Newton's cradle, and that you're really smart but also really bad at knowing when to stop working. Your dad talks about me? Sometimes, usually when he thinks I'm asleep. Evelyn looked at Caleb with something he couldn't quite name. You really thought about this? The consulting thing? I did. I talked to some people who work in corporate ethics. Turns out there's a whole field about making sure businesses don't destroy communities while maximizing profit. Who knew? I did, actually. We just never hired anyone to do it. Well, now you can. She smiled, slow and real. Okay, let's try it. Part-time. You keep your garage, keep your life. But twice a month, you come review our acquisition proposals and tell me which ones are morally reprehensible. That could be all of them. That's why I need you. They worked out details over lunch. A diner Danny picked that served burgers the size of his head. Salary, schedule, what exactly Caleb would be reviewing. It felt surreal negotiating a corporate consulting contract while Danny built a French fry tower and argued with Evelyn about whether Batman could beat Iron Man in a fight. Batman has better gadgets, Danny insisted. Iron Man has an AI that runs his suit. That's basically cheating. Evelyn stole one of his fries. Also, he's a billionaire with unlimited resources. So are you. Does that mean you could beat Batman? Absolutely not. Batman is terrifying. They spent the afternoon in the R&D lab, where engineers who definitely had better things to do helped Danny design a volcano that used way too much baking soda and vinegar. The eruption was spectacular, also messy. Caleb apologized while Danny cackled with delight. This is the best day ever, Danny announced, covered in fake lava. You say that about every moderately good day, Caleb pointed out. Because lots of days are the best. That's how good days work. Driving back that evening, Danny fell asleep in the back seat almost immediately, exhausted from excitement. Caleb's phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. Thank you for coming, and for saying yes. It means more than you know. He typed back. Thank you for giving me something to say yes to. The months that followed established a rhythm. Twice a month, Caleb drove to Houston, reviewed acquisition proposals, sat in meetings with people who spoke in acronyms and financial projections, and asked uncomfortable questions nobody else would. What happens to the employees? Where do the pension funds go? Is this legal or just technically legal? He wasn't always popular. Some executives clearly thought he was dead weight, a pet project of Evelyn's that contributed nothing to the bottom line. But others started coming to him before finalizing deals, asking his opinion, genuinely wanting to do things right. Evelyn called him her conscience. Caleb called himself a pain in the ass. Both were probably accurate. Danny adjusted to the new schedule. Sometimes he came along, doing homework in Miranda's office, or hanging out with the interns who treated him like a mascot. Other times he stayed with Diane, who'd developed a concerning relationship with Evelyn involving periodic phone calls about that boy's well-being and whether Caleb was eating properly. My mother-in-law and my boss are conspiring about my life, Caleb told Miranda one afternoon. Your boss is also kind of your friend, Miranda corrected. So that's actually two friends conspiring about your life. That's worse. Much worse. Summer came. The legal battles with Marcus concluded with multiple convictions, fraud, conspiracy, attempted bribery. He'd served 6 years minimum. Lily got probation and mandatory counseling, plus a lifetime ban from working in corporate finance. Evelyn didn't attend either sentencing, said she'd already spent enough time in the past and preferred looking forward. The company stabilized. Sinclair Enterprises bought 3 companies that quarter, a clean energy startup, a medical supply manufacturer, and a small robotics firm. All 3 deals passed Caleb's won't destroy lives test. The profit margins were smaller than Marcus's aggressive acquisitions would have netted, but the board seemed okay with that. Turned out good press and ethical practices were worth something. In August, Evelyn showed up at the garage unannounced, just walked in on a Tuesday afternoon while Caleb was under a Honda, and announced, I'm buying a house here. Caleb rolled out from under the car. What? A house in your town. I'm buying one. Why? Because I hate Houston, the traffic, the noise, the fact that everyone wants something from me. She looked around the garage like she was seeing it for the first time. I want to live somewhere quiet, where people care about things that matter, where I can be Evelyn instead of Miss Sinclair, the CEO. You can't just move here. Why not? I can work remotely, come into the office twice a week for important meetings. The rest of the time, I'll do conference calls and email like normal humans. She smiled. Besides, someone needs to make sure you're not eating cereal for dinner every night. I eat cereal for dinner because it's efficient. It's sad. You're a sad cereal man. Danny likes cereal for dinner. Danny is 8. You're 33. You should know better, bust. The house Evelyn bought was modest by her standards. 3 bedrooms, decent yard, needed some work, but had good bones. It was 4 blocks from Caleb's rental. Close enough to walk, far enough to maintain boundaries neither of them had quite figured out yet. Danny was thrilled. Does this mean Miss Evelyn lives here now? Like permanently? Looks like it, Caleb said. Cool. Can she come to my baseball games? You'd have to ask her. I'll ask her. Evelyn came to all of Danny's baseball games. She sat in the stands with Diane, both of them cheering too loudly and arguing about whether the umpire was blind or just incompetent. Danny's team lost every game that season, but he didn't seem to care. After each loss, they'd go for ice cream, and Danny would narrate every play in excruciating detail while Evelyn listened like it was the most important thing she'd ever heard. You're good with him, Caleb said one evening after dropping Danny at Diane's for a sleepover. He's easy to be good with. He actually likes me. Evelyn was sitting on Caleb's porch. She'd started showing up some evenings, usually with takeout, always with the excuse of checking if you'd eaten real food yet. Most people like what I can do for them. Danny just likes me. Kids are honest like that. It's terrifying and wonderful at the same time. She was quiet for a moment. I never wanted children. The whole time I was building the company, I told myself family was a distraction, that I didn't have time for that kind of mess. And now? Now I wonder if I was just scared. If it was easier to focus on work than risk caring about people who might leave. She looked at him. You make it look easy. The parenting thing. It's not easy. It's just necessary. So you do it. You say that about everything. It's just necessary, so you do it. She smiled. Like being a good person is that simple. It is that simple. People make it complicated, but it's not. Fall arrived. Danny started 3rd grade. Evelyn's house renovations finished, and she moved in with furniture that was expensive, but somehow still felt normal. Caleb helped her paint the kitchen, and they got into an argument about whether sage green or soft gray was the better color. Danny voted for dinosaur purple, which nobody took seriously. They settled into something that felt almost domestic. Weekend dinners that rotated between houses. Movie nights where Danny fell asleep 20 minutes in. Evelyn teaching Danny chess while Caleb worked on her car, a sensible sedan she'd bought specifically because it wasn't flashy. I'm trying to blend in, she'd explained. How am I doing? Terribly, Caleb had replied. You're still you. People in town eventually stopped seeing her as the billionaire from TV and started seeing her as Evelyn, who lived on Maple Street and had terrible taste in coffee. She joined the PTA at Danny's school, which led to Caleb getting drafted onto the fundraising committee, which led to both of them selling chocolate bars door to door like teenagers. This is humiliating, Evelyn said after their 5th rejection. This is community involvement, but I've negotiated billion-dollar deals. I faced down federal investigators. But Mrs. Henderson just shut the door in my face over chocolate bars. Mrs. Henderson is diabetic and mean. You'll get used to it. I'm never getting used to this. But she did. Slowly, awkwardly, like someone learning a language they'd never studied, Evelyn figured out how to be part of something smaller than corporate empires. She learned the names of Danny's classmates and which parents to avoid at pickup. She helped organize the Winter Carnival and only tried to hire professional event planners twice before accepting that bake sales and craft tables were the point, not efficiency. Christmas came. Caleb didn't plan anything special. He never did. But Evelyn showed up on Christmas Eve with bags of groceries and announced she was making dinner whether he liked it or not. You can't spend Christmas eating cereal, she said, already unpacking ingredients. We were going to have sandwiches. That's worse. Danny helped her cook, mostly by eating chocolate chips and asking approximately 800 questions about whether Santa was real, and if he wasn't, who ate the cookies they left out. Evelyn handled it with impressive patience, never quite confirming or denying, leaving just enough magic intact. They ate dinner at Caleb's kitchen table. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans Danny picked at but mostly avoided. It wasn't fancy. The chicken was slightly dry and the potatoes were lumpy and they used paper napkins because Caleb didn't own cloth ones. But it was good. Better than good. After Danny went to bed, Caleb and Evelyn sat on the porch with coffee, watching their breath fog in the cold air. Thank you, Caleb said, for dinner, for all of this. You've thanked me 17 times. I'm starting to think you're feeling guilty about something. Not guilty, just aware that my life is better with you in it, and I don't know if I've said that clearly enough. Evelyn was quiet. Then, my therapist says I need to practice accepting care without assuming there's a transaction involved. That sometimes people do nice things because they want to, not because they want something back. Sounds like a smart therapist. She is annoyingly smart. Evelyn wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. For 30 years, every relationship I had was transactional. Business partners who wanted deals, employees who wanted promotions, family who wanted, well, we know what they wanted. She looked at him. And then I met you. And you wanted nothing, still want nothing, as far as I can tell. That's not true. I want you to be happy. I want Danny to have people in his life who care about him. Caleb paused, trying to find words for something he hadn't quite admitted to himself. I want this. Whatever this is. However it keeps being. What if it keeps being more? His heart did something complicated. More like what? More like, I don't know. More than friends, but less than whatever label makes you panic and back away. She smiled slightly. I'm bad at this. The relationship thing. I haven't dated since Marcus, and before him I mostly had business arrangements with romantic undertones, so I don't know the right way to say this. But I think about you constantly. I plan my weeks around seeing you. I've started wondering what it would be like to kiss you, and whether that would ruin everything, or make everything better. Caleb couldn't breathe properly. Evelyn, you can say no. We can pretend I never said anything. Keep being friends who have dinner and co-parent your son platonically. She was talking faster now, nervous. I just needed to say it out loud, because my therapist says honesty is important, and I've spent too much of my life hiding what I actually want, because wanting things felt dangerous. I'm not good at relationships either, Caleb said carefully. I was married for 4 years, and most of that was me deployed or working too much. Sarah deserved better than what I gave her. And since she died, I've been so focused on Danny and survival that I forgot how to want things for myself. So that's a no? That's a I'm terrified I'll screw this up. So he looked at her. You're brilliant and powerful, and you've built an empire from nothing. I fix cars and eat cereal for dinner. We don't make sense. We've never made sense. You found me with a gun at a gas station and decided to help anyway. Nothing about us has ever been logical. She set down her coffee. But it's worked. Against all odds and common sense, it's worked. Wow. Danny comes first, Caleb said. Whatever happens, however this goes, he comes first. I wouldn't want it any other way. And we go slow. Figure it out as we go. Slow works. And if it doesn't work, if we try this and it falls apart, we stay friends. For Danny's sake, if nothing else. Deal. They sat there in the cold December air, having just negotiated the terms of maybe falling in love like it was a business proposal, which was probably the most them way possible to do this. So what happens now? Evelyn asked. Caleb thought about it. Then he stood up, held out his hand, and said, Now I walk you home, like a gentleman. She laughed and took his hand. 4 blocks seems excessive for walking someone home. I'm old-fashioned. They walked the 4 blocks slowly, still holding hands, not talking much. At her door, Evelyn turned around and looked up at him. Can I kiss you? She asked. Or is that too fast for slow? Probably too fast, Caleb said. But I don't care. The kiss was gentle and careful. 2 people who'd both been hurt learning to trust something new. It wasn't the dramatic movie kiss. It was tentative and slightly awkward and perfect because it was real. Good night, Caleb, Evelyn said when they pulled apart. Good night. He walked home feeling like the ground had shifted under his feet in the best possible way. Danny was asleep in his room, dreaming about whatever 8-year-olds dreamed about. The house was quiet, and Caleb's life, which had felt finished 4 years ago when Sarah died, suddenly felt like it was starting again. The months that followed weren't smooth. They had fights about boundaries and Danny's schedule and whether Evelyn was working too much. She met all of Caleb's friends, which was awkward because everyone knew her from the news. He attended a company event with her, which was worse because everyone there assumed he was after her money, but they figured it out. Slowly, with mistakes and apologies and conversations that lasted until 3 a.m. They figured out how to be together in a way that worked for both of them. Danny took the news that his dad was dating Miss Evelyn with the easy acceptance of someone whose world already included them both. "Does this mean she's going to live with us?" he asked. "Eventually, maybe. If things keep going well," Caleb said. "Okay, can she bring her TV? Ours is really old." "That's not why we're dating her." "But can she?" Evelyn started staying over some nights, just sleeping on the couch at first, then in Caleb's room when Danny explicitly gave permission in a formal announcement at dinner. "I think it's okay if Miss Evelyn is your girlfriend now," he'd said very seriously, "because she makes you smile more." Spring turned to summer, a year since the night Caleb found Evelyn at that gas station. They celebrated the anniversary by going back there, abandoned as ever, but different now. Not a place where someone almost gave up, but where two people's lives changed direction. "I was going to use that gun," Evelyn said quietly, standing where she'd sat that night. "Not on me. But I thought about it, what it would be like to just stop. But you didn't, because you showed up, and you were kind when you had no reason to be." She looked at him. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd driven past?" "Every day." "Me too." They stood there for a moment, honoring what almost happened and what did instead. Then they got back in the truck and drove home. That summer, Evelyn officially moved in. Not because she had to, but because it felt right. They combined households in the chaotic way people do, arguing about whose furniture stayed, where to put her books, why Caleb owned 17 coffee mugs when he only ever used 2. Danny helped by being absolutely no help at all, mostly using the boxes as fort. The town gossips had a field day. Caleb heard all about it through customers and Diane, who reported everything with great amusement. But mostly people were happy for them. The mechanic and the billionaire. It was a good story, and this town had always appreciated a good story. In October, on a Saturday morning when Danny was at a friend's house, Evelyn found Caleb in the garage working on a transmission and said, "I have something to ask you." "But if it's about getting a bigger TV, Danny already campaigned for that. It's not about the TV." She looked nervous, which was rare enough to make him pay attention. "It's about the future, specifically how we're defining it." Caleb put down his wrench. "Okay. I don't want to be your girlfriend anymore." His stomach dropped. "What? You?" Me. "I want to be your wife, if that's something you'd want." She pulled a small box from her pocket, and Caleb's brain short-circuited. "This is backwards, I know that. The man is supposed to propose. But I've never done anything the traditional way, so why start now?" "Evelyn, let me finish, please." She opened the box. Inside was a simple band, nothing flashy. "I want to marry you. I want to officially be Danny's stepmom. I want to build a life where we're not just dating or living together, but actually family. Legal, official, permanent family." She looked at him. "So what do you think?" Caleb stared at the ring, at her face, at this woman who'd rebuilt her entire existence and decided he fit into it. "I think Sarah would have liked you," he said finally. "I think she'd be happy I found someone who makes me want things again, who makes me better than I was." "Is that a yes?" "That's a, we need to ask Danny first." They told Danny that afternoon. He looked at the ring, looked at them, and said, "Does this mean Miss Evelyn is going to be my mom?" "Stepmom," Evelyn clarified. "Your mom was someone else, someone important. I'm not trying to replace her." "But you'd be like a mom? Like, you'd come to my stuff and help with homework and be there?" "Yes, if that's okay with you." Danny thought about it with the seriousness of someone making a major life decision. Then he said, "Okay, but you have to learn to make grilled cheese without burning it. Dads are always burned." "Deal. And you have to come to all my baseball games, even when we're losing." I already do that. And Danny paused. And you have to stay, even when things are hard, because families stay. Evelyn's eyes went bright. I'll stay, I promise. Okay then. You can marry Dad. They got married 3 months later, in January, at the courthouse with just Danny, Diane, and Miranda as witnesses. No big ceremony, no press, just the 5 of them and a judge who probably did 6 weddings that day and wouldn't remember theirs as anything special. But it was special, because Caleb slipped a ring on Evelyn's finger and promised to love her through whatever came next. And she promised the same. And Danny stood between them, holding both their hands, officially part of something permanent. Afterward, they went to Ruthie's diner, the same place they'd gone that first terrible night. Ruthie took one look at them and said, "Well, I'll be damned. You kids actually figured it out." Surprised? Caleb asked. Nah. Could see it coming from a mile away. Some people just fit, even when they shouldn't. She brought them coffee without asking. Congratulations. Don't screw it up. We'll try not to. Life continued. Caleb kept the garage. Evelyn kept the company, though she worked from home more often than not. Danny grew taller and started asking questions about middle school and whether he could get a dog now that they had a real family. They compromised on a cat, which Danny named Rocket, and which spent most of its time sleeping on Evelyn's laptop during conference calls. The house they lived in was Caleb's rental for another year before Evelyn bought it outright, joking that she was investing in real estate. They fixed it up together, repainted the shutters, fixed the fence, planted a garden that produced exactly 3 tomatoes and 1 sad zucchini. It wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. Some nights, when Danny was asleep and the house was quiet, Caleb would find Evelyn on the porch with coffee, staring at the dark street. "You okay?" he'd ask. "Just thinking about how different things are, how I almost missed all of this because I was too busy chasing the wrong things." "But you didn't miss it." "No, I didn't." She'd pull him down next to her. "You know what's funny? I spent 15 years building an empire so I'd never need anyone. So I'd be completely self-sufficient and safe. And then I lost it all. And that's when I finally found what actually mattered." "What's that?" "People who stay. People who show up when things are terrible and don't leave when they get worse." She leaned against him. "You showed up, and you stayed. And you taught me that needing people isn't weakness. It's just being human. You taught me some things too." "Like what?" "Like it's okay to want more than just survival. Like taking risks on people can work out. Like," Caleb thought about it, "like the smallest decisions can change everything. Stopping at that gas station instead of driving past. Helping someone instead of calling the police and moving on. That one choice built all of this. Scary when you think about it that way." Terrifying. They sat in comfortable silence, and Caleb thought about all the versions of his life that could have existed. The one where he drove past that gas station, where Evelyn used that gun or got caught by Marcus's people, where fear won and kindness lost. But that's not what happened. What happened was messier and more complicated and infinitely better. What happened was they saved each other, not in the dramatic way movies show, but in the small daily way that actually matters. Showing up, staying, choosing each other again and again, even when it was hard. 2 years later, Danny asked if he could call Evelyn Mom instead of always saying her name. "Is that weird?" he asked. "Since I didn't know my first mom." "It's not weird," Caleb said. "If it feels right to you, then it's right." Does Mom mind? Why don't you ask her?" Danny found Evelyn in the kitchen, cooking dinner with the careful concentration of someone who'd learned from scratch. "Mom, can I talk to you?" "Sorry." She turned around, and Caleb watched her face change as the word registered. "You called me Mom. Is that okay?" "It's..." Evelyn's voice broke. "It's more than okay." Danny hugged her, and she held on like he might disappear, this kid who'd accepted her into his life without condition or suspicion. This family they'd built from broken pieces and unlikely circumstances. Later that night, after Danny was asleep, Evelyn told Caleb, "I never thought I'd have this. A family. People who actually want me around, not for what I can do or what I'm worth, just because I'm me. You have it now." "I know. And it's terrifying because I could lose it. You could leave. Danny could decide I'm not good enough. Stop. Caleb took her hands. We're not leaving. We're here. This is real. Stop waiting for it to fall apart. How do you have so much faith in things working out? Because I've seen them not work out. I've lived through the worst. And I learned that the only way forward is trusting people anyway. Choosing to believe in good things even when experience says you shouldn't. He smiled. Besides, I chose you. And I've got excellent judgment. You have terrible judgment. You picked up a stranger with a gun. Best decision I ever made. 5 years after that night at the gas station, Caleb and Evelyn stood in the backyard of their house, no longer a rental, actually theirs, watching Danny play with Rocket and 3 other kids from school. It was Danny's 13th birthday, and they'd thrown him a party with all the trappings teenagers pretended not to care about, but secretly loved. He's growing up, Evelyn said, sounding somewhere between proud and sad. They do that. When does it stop being scary? Probably never. Great. They watched their son laugh at something his friend said, tall and confident and happy in a way that felt like the greatest achievement of Caleb's life. Not the business he'd helped build, not the money he'd saved, just this, a kid who felt loved and secure and ready to face whatever came next. You know what I realized? Evelyn said. I used to measure success in dollars and deals and market share, things that looked impressive in Forbes articles but didn't actually mean anything. Boom, and now? Now I measure it in moments like this. In Danny calling me mom without hesitation, in coffee on the porch with you, in being part of something small and ordinary and absolutely perfect. She looked at him. That night you found me, I thought my life was over, that I'd lost everything worth having. You had. Yeah. But it turned out losing everything was the best thing that could have happened, because it meant I could build something better, something real. She smiled. You gave me that, the chance to start over, the courage to try. You gave me that too. I was stuck, just existing, not living, too scared to want anything more. Caleb pulled her close, and then you showed up and demanded more. From me, from life, from everything. And I'm better for it. They stood there watching their son, both of them. And Caleb thought about all the things he'd learned in 5 years. That wealth wasn't in bank accounts, but in people who showed up. That strength wasn't in never needing help, but in asking for it. That family wasn't just blood, but choice, made over and over, in 1,000 small moments that added up to something permanent. That sometimes the worst night of your life was actually the beginning of the best part. That kindness to strangers wasn't naive or foolish, but possibly the most important thing humans could do for each other. That broken people could heal if they found the right people to heal with. Danny ran over, breathless and grinning. Mom, can we do cake now? Tyler says his mom makes better cake than us, but I said ours is definitely better. Ours is from the bakery, Evelyn pointed out. Yeah, but we picked it out. That counts. Solid logic. Let's do cake. They went inside to celebrate another year of Danny's life, another year of their family existing and thriving, another year of proof that good things could come from terrible beginnings. And that night, after the party ended and the house was quiet again, Caleb found himself back at his garage. Not to work, just to think. He ran his hand along the workbench, remembering the man who'd stood here 5 years ago, tired, broke, surviving, but not quite living. That man had made a choice, to stop at an abandoned gas station, to help someone who needed it, to risk his quiet life for something bigger than himself. And everything had changed because of it. Not smoothly, not perfectly, but completely. The door opened. Evelyn stood silhouetted against the streetlight. Knew I'd find you here. Just thinking about how one night changed everything, how I almost drove past, how close we came to never happening. But we did happen. Whoops. Yeah, we did. Caleb walked over to her, and I'd make the same choice again every single time. Even knowing how complicated it got? Especially knowing that, because complicated means real, and real is what matters. They stood there in the doorway of his garage, in the small town they'd both chosen, living a life neither of them had planned, but both of them had built. Together. from the ruins of what they'd lost, they'd made something better, something worth fighting for, something worth keeping. And if someone had asked Caleb in that moment what he'd learned from all of it, he'd say this: that saving someone's life isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just stopping when you could keep driving, staying when you could leave, choosing to care when apathy would be easier. That we're all one bad night away from needing someone to stop for us. And we're all one good choice away from being that someone for another person. That the most valuable things in life aren't things at all. They're people, moments, the quiet certainty that you're not facing the world alone. That love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth staying imperfect with. And that sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the worst thing that ever happened to you leads directly to the best thing. You just have to be brave enough to keep going, to accept help when it's offered, to build something new from the pieces of what broke. They walked home together, hand in hand, to the house where their son was sleeping and their cat was probably destroying something, and their life was continuing its beautiful, messy, absolutely ordinary way. And it was more than enough. It was everything.